Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto x High School of the Dead Harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Helghy and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Outbreak. Naruto rolled his neck to loosen up after putting another of the flesh-eating corpses down for good. The third year calmly cleaned the knife he used on his sleeve before turning back to the girl that had followed along after him. Sakura had been his childhood friend and his girlfriend since their first year at this school. She was more or less the average high school girl, and he couldn't help but worry how she was handling this entire situation. The blonde took in her appearance with a careful eye. Her clothes had become splattered with blood as well as her face. Her long pink hair was still done up in a bun like she normally wore it, but the running and fighting as well as their earlier activities had made several strands come loose, giving her a wild appearance. Truth be told, it was kind of a turn-on. Too bad they didn't have time to fool around at the moment. "Naruto?" she asked. "Yeah?" he replied as he turned away from her to glance out into the hallway. "Why aren't you freaking out?" "I'm freaking out a little, but you aren't freaking out," Sakura said as her breathing began to rapidly pick up its pace. "Hey, you have to keep calm, alright?" he said, locking the door behind him and moving over to his girlfriend. He wrapped her up into his arms and grimaced lightly as he felt her painfully grip him as she fought back panic at their situation. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "It's fine, just hold it together for a bit longer and we can get out of this shit, alright?" He gave her a tight squeeze before pulling away and making his way back to the door. "We have to get to the teacher lounge. If we can get my keys to my bike, we're home free," he said as he grabbed her hand and pulled her along after him. The pair of third years quietly and quickly as they dared made their way toward the teacher lounge. Once they finally made it to the proper floor, they heard a loud scream coming from near to where they were headed. "Other people are there. Come on, we'll probably be better off in numbers until we leave the school," Naruto said. "Oh god." Sakura whimpered slightly as they rounded the corner and did her best to harden her resolve. Naruto and Sakura seemed to arrive at the same time as several other survivors. Naruto recognized Seiko Busujima and the school nurse, and he was pretty sure the other kids were second-year students. Among them he knew Saya Takagi. His family worked closely with hers on several gray area enterprises. Ones that weren't officially illegal but wouldn't win them any love from the people of Japan if they knew what was going on. Saya was screaming as she used a drill to destroy one of the undead's head. However, she and a chubby boy Naruto didn't immediately recognize were quickly being surrounded and overrun. Naruto wasted no time rushing in. He wasn't necessarily devoted to saving others at risk to himself, but he couldn't leave the Takagi girl out to dry, and he wasn't so stupid as to think having more people around wouldn't help him out in the long run. Either others were far more altruistic than himself, or they all shared the same idea of strength in numbers. He could hear Sakura behind him braining one of the undead, something he was rather proud of, while he drove his knife into the soft spot at the base of one's skull, before yanking it free and driving it up through the roof of another's mouth, essentially pinning its jaw closed until he ripped the blade free again. Around him, Seiko used a wooden bakken to kill a pair of zombies herself, while the other two students that had arrived used a bat and a broken mop handle respectively. "Let's not wait around here too long. Those things come after sound," Seiko said as they all began heading into the teacher lounge. Sakura and Saya were both struggling with the fact they had just killed something and had to be practically drug in. Naruto frowned at the sight of his girl. Her hollow eyes and shaking hands. To think just a few hours earlier they were fooling around on their way to the secluded roof. Flashback. Earlier that morning, Naruto had been late to school, and since he was late all the good spots to park had been taken. Being the practical guy he decided parking on the sidewalk near the front doors was fine. After all, his fellow students knew far better than to fuck with his stuff. The last ones to do so had learned that lesson for everyone else. All it takes to get a lesson through everyone's head is to make it memorable after all. His mom and dad had made sure he was quite good at that. Sadly, not everyone seemed to agree that his solution of parking on the sidewalk was a good one. There were complaints given by his two favorite teachers. Something that annoyed him as they typically let him get away with anything. Ayako Hayashi put up a front for most of the school, but Naruto had found out some flirting and a bit of aggressive hands, and the woman let him do whatever he wanted. She usually wanted it too after all. It was not really hard to figure out why she was his favorite for the last 2 years. That had changed though thanks to his second favorite teacher. Tajima was the kind of guy that weirdly respected the delinquent mentality. Like he had been a delinquent in the past as a kid, or what he would consider a delinquent and still considered it the cool lifestyle for a teenage boy. He looked the other way for bullying and was harder on the physically weak or clumsier kids in his gym classes. Evidently he thought Naruto was like his old self, which was pretty far from correct, but since he let Naruto get away with whatever, the teen never corrected the man. Now though, there was an issue. The pair of teachers had recently started shacking up. Naruto didn't mind. Even after he learned they were dating, he had gotten a hold of Kyoko in her classroom closet a couple times. She was a lot more skilled than Sakura was, but his girlfriend had only ever been with him, so he figured she would get better as time wore on. Still, things had been slowly changing since the two teachers started dating. Kyoko even flat out refused him last week, and Tajima had sent him out of class when he had been getting a donation from one of the punks in his class. This was a bridge too far. The pair of them confronted him about parking on the sidewalk and even confiscated his keys. They'd lectured him in the most annoying and hypocritical method possible, not that Naruto recalled what either of them said. Properly pissed off after being made to relinquish his keys, Naruto had immediately decided he was going to blow off his classes for the day, which meant he was planning on liberating Sakura from their stifling atmosphere as well. He found her in geometry, and while she had made a small show of being shocked in class, the moment they were in the hallway, she was giggling and clearly excited about skipping class so blatantly with Naruto. The two of them had been friends since they were little. According to Sakura, her father worked closely with Naruto's mother and father. The truth that Naruto knew was that Kizashi Haruno helped his mom and dad's organizations in laundering money. Growing up together, they'd always been close, and when they both entered high school, the idea they would start dating seemed obvious. Even if Kizashi seemed lukewarm to the idea. Since then, Sakura had found herself a bit enthralled by the bad boy delinquent type of personality that Naruto possessed. The fact that he managed to get away with so much of it even when practically right in front of faculty just made her all that more interested. It didn't hurt that Sakura was not really all that kind of a person. Not like she presented herself publicly. Naruto had noticed it when they were kids, but Sakura really didn't care for very many people at all, and to an extent found a bit of entertainment when they ended up as one of Naruto's targets. He knew that, but if anything, the fact that he was one of the few people his secretly psychotic girlfriend actually cared about was kind of the main reason he stayed together with her. And honestly, they really had been friends for pretty much their entire lives. "Where are we going?" She giggled out as they made it to an external stairwell. "Bad bitch, Kyoko and Tajima took my keys, so we're stuck at school for now. We can still go to one of the rooftop sheds and fuck though." Naruto grinned while running a finger under the hem of her skirt, causing her to quietly squeal and press into him to snag a kiss. "I'm surprised you let them do that. Usually Hayashi and that gym teacher are wrapped around your finger." Especially Hayashi. Sakura sent him a pointed look at that, causing him to chuckle. He wasn't surprised Sakura knew about him and Kyoko. He thought it was funny that she went out of her way to spread nasty rumors about the woman and be an altogether pain in the ass for the woman though. "Yeah, well, I'll set that shit straight, but right now I'm going to blow off some steam and you are my poor victim," Naruto replied as he popped her on the ass, sending her scurrying up the stairs ahead of him. "Oh no. I wonder what you'll make me do," she teased before stopping and letting her grin fall as she stared out over one of the school courtyards toward the main gate. "What is it?" Naruto asked as he turned around to look with her. "Someone is trying to get into the school." "Is that Hayashi and Tajima-sensei?" Sakura asked. "Yeah. And Tajima's assistant," Naruto commented before they watched Tajima slam the stranger against the gate. "DCH, that fat old man peaked in high school. He should be careful who he messes around with. One of these days they are going to really set him straight," Naruto commented before he paused as the people at the gate began screaming and Tajima stumbled back bleeding badly. Sakura grabbed onto his arm tightly as they watched the violent act suddenly happen, and he was a bit shocked honestly. Whoever that was stupid if they thought they could do something like that to a teacher and not get popped by the police. Even he wasn't so arrogant as to directly assault a teacher, let alone try to kill them like whoever that was. "Oh my god." Sakura breathed out sharply. Naruto just stared as he watched Tajima's assistant suffer the same fate as Kyoko, and then all three began to stand and head toward the school. "Sakura, come on," Naruto harshly ordered. He didn't really leave the option up to her. He grabbed a hold of her hand and began to rush back down the stairs toward where his locker was. "Naruto, wait, where are we going? Shouldn't we call the police or something?" she asked him as they ran. Into doubt people becoming cannibals all of a sudden really fits into the wheelhouse of a beat cop Sakura. Naruto snarked back, causing the pin cat to blush slightly. "Besides, you've seen zombie movies. If shit like this is happening at a school, then it's probably already in the city. So what? What the hell are we supposed to do?" Sakura demanded as they rounded a corner, almost being bowled over by a trio of second years rushing past toward the stairs to the roof. "Sakura, calm down." He tried to reassure her, but really his words didn't go very far to actually calming her down at the moment. "What are you thinking?" she demanded as they finally came to a stop at his locker. "All the worst things." The moment Tajima, Kyoko, and the rest start spreading into the school, everything is going to go crazy. Really crazy. He popped his locker door open and Sakura was surprised by the contents. He had his school books. After all, his parents might look the other way for pretty much everything, but they did demand decent grades. Behind the books though was a collection of items that Sakura was a bit uncomfortable but equally interested in. Obvious school contraband, weapons, some watches and wallets that definitely weren't Naruto's, and what was probably a container of some kind of drug. Naruto didn't even look at the other items, instead his hand hovered across the various implements he used to either rough up people who bothered him or make a point. He briefly settled onto an actual set of brass knuckles, something Sakura had never seen in real life, before instead grabbing a couple of other items and fitting them into his belt. One was a simple claw hammer, but the other was something Sakura had only seen in displays or on TV, except when she visited Naruto's family. Both of his parents had them and several other people at their home. "We need to talk whenever we have a moment, huh?" Naruto said with a dry chuckle. The Tanto-style knife was much shorter than the old historical Tantos, but was a well-loved weapon of the gangs that could be found in Japan. Sakura knew it wasn't just something that had caught Naruto's interest, but her attention was taken from the knife on his belt to the thin metal rod being pushed into her hands. She didn't say anything as her hand closed around it and he swung the locker closed before dragging her off by the wrist once again. The rod was about as long as her arm from fingertip to elbow, but was heavy and extremely dense. It was bent a little, and she kind of wondered what he had done with it to bend it, being as it was way too strong to bend with her hands. She shook those thoughts out of her head. She knew how after all. Naruto pulled her into a small supply closet at the end of the hall before he forced some items up under the door handle. She knew this closet. They'd fooled around in here once a few weeks ago. Her boyfriend was great at finding little secluded spots like this one on the school grounds. They definitely weren't here to play hide the snake. "What's the plan? You just keep yanking me around." Sakura finally scowled over at the blonde. "Sakura, I told you, things are going to get crazy any moment now, so we need to," Naruto was explaining before the speakers all across the school crackled to life and the principal's voice came over the sound system. It was clear the principal was doing his level best to remain calm and keep everyone else calm as well as he began instructing them to evacuate. The end result though was that things simply got worse as he was very clearly assaulted and apparently murdered while still transmitting. There was roughly 3 full beats of silence before screams broke out across the school and frantic panic began. Sakura watched the shadows of other racing past and the sounds of fighting and screaming all around them. Naruto kept her grounded with a tight grip on her hands as things began to get even worse and they could hear people being killed by zombies. She hated the word as it made the whole things feel fake. The sudden slam of a body into the door and thick red blood running under the doorframe was very real though. She wanted to scream, but Naruto's hand tightly clutched her mouth closed before he pulled her into a tight embrace to keep her quiet. They didn't need to give away their hiding spot. They could move whenever things settled down slightly. Flashback end. Naruto and Sakura joined the others in barricading the room they had collectively taken shelter in. After doing so they all took a moment to catch their breath. Saya, having just killed her first of the undead, had fallen to her knees and begun to cry, causing Rei and the school nurse to head over to her side. While they did what they could to comfort her, the others slowly gathered around after triple-checking their meager defenses. Siko, being the calm collected girl she was, easily started introductions first. "I imagine you all already know Nurse Marikawa. I'm Siko Busujima, Class 3A," Siko offered. "I'm Takashi Komuro from 2B," the boy with the bat offered. "Oh, Miss Busujima, I remember you won the National Kendo Championship last year," Rei said. She seemed rather chipper all things considered. Especially since Naruto noticed she was missing a member from her little group. "I'm Rei Miyamoto. I'm in the Spear Martial Arts Club," Rei continued. "I'm Kota Hirano from Class B, Just Fee," the chubby boy that had been with Saya said. "Siko, we share a few classes actually, so I kind of know you I guess." Sakura began turning to look at the others. "I'm Sakura Haruno, Class 3A." Naruto hummed as he began cleaning off his bloody knife. "I'm Naruto Namikaze. I don't really get why you are all saying what class you are from. I don't really think it matters." As he finished cleaning the knife in the sink, he caught his own reflection in it before grunting with a nod to himself and putting it away. Flashback. Naruto and Sakura crept out of the closet quietly. Naruto had thought he would have to force the door open from the corpse that had been in the way, but the damn thing had gotten up and after bumping into the door a couple of times wandered off down the hall with the rest of them. "I can't believe this is actually happening. Real life zombies," Naruto said as he still struggled to wrap his head around it. After all, this was straight out of a movie or something. "What do we do?" Sakura whispered to him. "We'll play it safe. But remember how Kyoko's room always had the best cell reception?" Naruto asked. "Right, we can call for the police there then," Sakura said. I don't think the police can do much, Sakura. This is probably all across the city. He didn't want to tack on the or worse that was in his head. The next best thing is to get a hold of our parents. It's a stretch but we should try. Right. Sakura agreed as they picked along the hallway quietly until one of the bodies in the hall seemed to sit straight up and reach for Sakura. She let loose a scream as the thing moved forward to take a chunk out of her ankle, but thankfully Naruto's foot smashed into its face first and plastered a mix of gore across the tile. Sadly for the two students, Sakura's sudden scream had led to the rest of the hall turning toward them and slowly ambling after them. Shit. Naruto said as he stepped forward, pulling the hammer from his belt and braining the first of the small horde without hesitation. Sakura stared in shock as Naruto quickly worked to killing as many of the zombies as he could, busting open skull after skull until he began cussing up a storm. "Gee, piece of shit," he growled as the head of the hammer broke off in the skull of his most recent opponent. There were still a few more left in the hallway with them though. With little other choice, he sunk the hammer's handle all the way up to its grip in another's head, dropping it but also losing his weapon in the process. He moved to pull his knife free of his belt but felt one of them grab him from behind and even managed to rip a hole in his collar, narrowly missing his skin as it tore up his jacket. "No." Sakura wailed as she slammed the metal rod Naruto had given her against the zombie's head. It dropped to the ground but slowly started to rise up again, only for Sakura to finish it off with a vicious blow to the back of its skull. After a brief second of taking in the action she had just committed, she moved alongside her boyfriend to finish off the last few in the hallway. Together they made quick work of the brain-dead monsters before finally reaching the relative safety of Hayashi's classroom. Locking and barricading the door behind them, Naruto and Sakura took a moment to catch their breath before pulling each other into a tight embrace once again. Sakura did her best to fight back the tears at what was going on around them. She was overwhelmed, truthfully. There was something else though. That hollow feeling she had realized whenever she killed the one trying to ambush Naruto from behind. It had carried on to each of the zombies she had killed. She didn't feel bad about it like she thought she was supposed to. That felt odd. However, she pushed the emotion down. After all, these things could hardly be considered human anymore. "Let's try your parents first," Naruto said as he pulled out his cell phone and gave it to Sakura. She nodded before planting a peck on his cheek for letting her go first. Sadly, it didn't matter much. Neither call was answered for her parents' cell phones, and their home phone simply gave back a recorded message telling her that the call couldn't be completed as dialed. She wanted to scream at that moment, but already they had realized the undead were attracted to noise. Instead, she collapsed into Naruto's embrace and gave the phone back to him. The blonde shot her a pitying glance before trying to call his dad. Like with Sakura, it just went to voicemail, but when he called his mother it was thankfully a different story. "Naruto, thank God. Tell me where you are right now," Kushina said over the phone. However, it was hard to hear her with the sounds of sirens, screaming, and fighting in the background, as well as thick static on the line. "Still in the school. Sakura is with me and we had to wait for things to die down a bit. Is it the same for you guys?" Naruto asked a bit worriedly. "Yes. Your father is trying to get the building locked down, but I'm on the ground floor watching things right now. I don't think we can get out of the city to come to you," she replied. "Are you all okay?" he asked. "We're better off than you right now. You need to find a group of survivors and bunker down. Tell Sakura I have someone picking her parents up right now. They're just down the street from here, so we will all try to wait this out till we can come and get you both, alright?" Kushina explained. The two teens exchanged halfway relieved looks before Naruto told her that they would do what she said. Sadly, after that, wherever else Kushina had to say was too garbled with static before the call was lost. That was kind of expected. The only decent place for reception in the whole building was the damn roof, but he wasn't about to fight his way up there and risk so many of the zombies just to have the same conversation a second time. "They're okay," Sakura said through happy tears. Yeah, they're okay. We never should have doubted, I guess," Naruto replied as he heaved a relieved sigh and chuckled a bit. "Alright. We need to get moving. My keys are still in the teacher's lounge, so that's where we are heading first," Naruto said as he began to head toward the door. As he set his knife down, he noticed the brief fearful glance Sakura gave it, making him pause. He turned to face her before slowly she turned to face him totally. "You afraid of me now?" he asked quietly. "No. At least, I feel a lot safer from those things with you here, you know," Sakura quickly replied. "Yeah, but I mean, you aren't wondering why I have that knife or all that other stuff? Why I'm pretty good with it too?" he asked. Sakura shuffled awkwardly at that question. Slowly she locked eyes with him again, surprising Naruto with the look she was giving him. "I have known since I was a kid just what you are, Naruto. What you and your family are," Sakura said. "Really?" Naruto asked, a bit disbelieving. "Yeah. I just pretended not to know." I know dad works for them, you all went out of your way to keep me and mom out of the loop, so I just played along. It was what you all wanted and I kind of understood why. Sakura explained. Naruto stared at her for a while before a small smile spread onto his face. He stepped over to her and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I was planning on telling you when we graduated, no matter whether your dad wanted me to or not. You're my girl, not his anyway. He wants to keep his woman in the dark, that's his mistake. Naruto said, causing Sakura to awkwardly chuckle. She was pretty sure her mom knew too, but just didn't bring it up like Sakura. Having a gangster boyfriend always has been kinda hot anyway. Sakura commented as they broke apart and finished removing the barricade from the door. Fantasizing. I think out of the two of us you might actually be the more perverted. Always wanting some kind of roleplay, he teased, causing Sakura to blush but grin hungrily toward him. She was happy for a distraction from the madness they were stuck in. Sadly, the moment they stepped back into the halls, the distraction died away and she did her best to steel herself against the situation they had to face. Then flashback. As Naruto put away his knife, he didn't notice the concerned look in Rei's eyes. The girl didn't honestly know anything about the boy, besides he was some sort of major delinquent. However, unlike most of the delinquents she knew about at school, her father hadn't named them specifically to stay away from. It had been easy enough. To the point she had pretty much forgotten the older boy's existence entirely. Hearing his name though, she immediately felt wary. Siko and Saya were a different story though. Naruto recognized them both, and they recognized him and to a lesser extent Sakura. Saya knew Rei a little as well, but shaking her head at the odd change of interaction from survivalist to cheery introductions, like they were a new after-school club or something, had her growing irritated with the group as a whole. Why are you all being all warm and fuzzy? Saya said, getting everyone to turn to face her. Why are you being so nice to her, Miyamoto? You flunked last year. She's not your elder. The group, including Naruto, were all confused by what she was saying. What did that have to do with anything at all? What are you talking about, Takagi? Koda asked. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I'm smarter than all of you combined. Yo, she began to scream and ran only to stumble backward as Naruto roughly slapped her across the face. Naruto? Sakura hissed in shock. For being so goddamn smart, you sure do make a lot of fucking noise when those things follow sound. Naruto said coldly as Rei, Takashi, and Siko all moved beside her to calm her down. Takashi stood as if he was going to fight with Naruto, but both boys simply stared at one another for a while. Siko held Saya as the younger girl broke out in tears and cried. Harsh and painful gasping wails. Naruto simply walked over to the water fountain and got something to drink while the rest of the room awkwardly settled in while Saya regained her self-control. After a while, things calmed down once again. Saya took the opportunity to get cleaned up a bit and put on glasses, causing Koda to mumble as he followed her about like a puppy. The rest of the group largely lounged around to rest. Fighting non-stop like they had been was exhausting, and it was starting to get pretty late in the day. Naruto and Sakura had begun digging around looking for the keys to his bike, but soon realized it would be best if they stuck with the others. Even if they could find the keys, which seemed to not actually be in the teacher lounge where Naruto thought they would be, there was safety in numbers. At least they hoped there was. Like isn't big enough to hold all of us. Marikawa said sadly as she tossed her keys back into her bag. What about the school microbus for the club away games? Siko suggested. Looks like the keys are on the wall hook. Hey, I can see the bus too. Koda said as he looked through the blinds of the window. That's fine, but where are we going? Marikawa asked. We're going to make sure our families are okay. We'll start with the family who lives closest to here. If you're worried about our family, we'll bring them with us. After that we'll look for a safe place, and Takashi began only to be interrupted. That is going to be a lot easier said than done. Sakura commented. It might not be able to be done at all. Naruto said as he unmuted the television. The whole group gathered around as the newscaster spoke as calmly as she could about the developing situation around the world. The whole world. As in, this whole thing was way worse than their worst nightmare. The government has begun to consider the emergency measures against the outbreaks that have been occurring in locations throughout the city. However, the newscaster droned on. Outbreaks? What do they mean, outbreaks? Takashi asked. Gee, I wonder what that could possibly be. Naruto rolled his eyes as he upped the volume of the broadcast. It's been feared that more than 10,000 have been victimized in the Saitama area so far. The government has already called for. The woman on TV was interrupted as the bodies began to move and the police began using live ammo to put them down once again. It wasn't enough though, as suddenly more zombies began to appear on screen and most of the police simply fled, leaving the cameraman and reporter to be killed and eaten. The screen cut to white static fuzz for a short time, and just as Naruto was about to change the channel, it cut back to the studio. Frantic voices in the background could be heard while the news anchor did her best to remain calm and continue to keep the public updated to the best of her ability. We've lost contact with our remote, so for the time being we will be keeping you all posted from here at the studio. The situation outside remains extremely chaotic, so we advise you all to stay home unless it is absolutely necessary for you to go outside. We'll bring you more stories as soon as it's safe to cover the current situation from the site," the newswoman said. "Ah." Takashi grunted as he slammed a fist onto one of the desks. "Is that all? Why didn't they tell us anything else?" "They're afraid of causing a panic," Siko responded. "A panic?" Ray asked. "Yeah, you idiot." Saya jumped into the conversation. "First panic, then chaos. Chaos causes a disruption of order. And then when order is disrupted, well, you should just hand it all over to the walking corpses." "Odd, you suck," Sakura said, getting an enraged look from Saya at her words and a snort of agreement from Naruto. This sudden and unprecedented phenomenon that has already spread throughout North America has yet to be put under control. Government authorities have evacuated the White House and will relocate to a command center on board the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford. There are speculative reports that the transfer of power is in preparation for the use of tactical warheads to combat the infestation, the newswoman said. The group quieted completely as the anchor explained the situation around the world. "We have currently lost contact with Moscow. Beijing has been set ablaze, London has maintained a semblance of order, while in Paris and Rome, there are reports of looting. Most national governments have declared some form of martial law," and the woman continued before the screen flickered and the signal went out. Silence reigned for only a short amount of time before everyone sort of sagged in dread. "So they're everywhere," Takashi said. "I don't understand. I was online this morning and there was nothing about any of this," Koda added in. "Yeah, well, porn sites aren't the best place for current events," Saya snapped. "This happened all over the world in a matter of a few hours," Ray said as she stumbled back. "But they'll stop it, right?" Naruto watched as she leaned into Takashi's side and grabbed hold of his sleeve. He glanced over to Sakura, who seemed to be more interested in wiping the blood out of her hair. Naruto almost smiled at the sight. How easily she had overcome her initial trouble with their situation. He was proud of her. Not that he thought she was just fine. None of them were. This was a madhouse now, though, so the definition of alright had most definitely shifted in the last few hours. Ray continued to babble at Takashi about them stopping it and everything returning to normal soon. Naruto couldn't stop the sigh that escaped as Saya decided to bitch at Ray again. "That's not going to happen," Saya roughly told the other girl. "Why do you have to be so blunt about it?" Takashi asked with some heat in his voice. "This is a pandemic, there's nothing we can do." Saya began to rant. "You could start with shutting your mouth for once," Naruto chimed in. "Oh, like the gangster should be talking to me in such a tone," she snapped. Naruto rolled his eyes. "Reality check time. Alright kids, let's make some shit clear. 1. Zombies are fucking real." Naruto began getting dry stares from Saya and Takashi and blank ones from most of the others. 2. The government has bigger shit to deal with than a handful of school kids. 3. If you can't protect yourself, you best hope you have some fucking charitable friends to do it for you. Naruto pointedly glared at Saya with that causing her to glare back. 4. These zombies are going to be the least of our worries. They are stupid and slow and track with sound only as far as we can't tell. Looters and whatever else manages to eke out a life in this mess is going to be way scarier than something I can knock over and stomp to death without breaking a sweat." Naruto continued his lecture before pulling up the blinds at the window. 5. We need to hunker down somewhere with food and water and play defense. Just not in a crowded ass school building like this one," Naruto said as he jabbed a finger toward the school bus outside. "If we are going to get out of here we are going to need a plan," Siko points out. "That's better. No more useless pissing and moaning, we figure the best way out and get moving," Naruto agreed. "So what's the best way out of here?" Ray asked. "Sorry to break it to you, stupid. But the only way out is through the front," Saya said. "That sounds about right," Sakura said with a depressed aura even as she picked up her weapon and moved toward the door like the rest of the group. Chapter 2. The wheels on the bus. A handful of teens and the school nurse holed up inside the teacher's lounge were faced with the very grim reality of their situation. If any of them gave it any thought they would likely realize that not only all across the city but across the entire world, the few pockets of survivors were coming to what likely was a very similar problem. They were currently cornered and the only real way out was to go straight through the horde of undead. At the moment they were trying to plan the best path to do just that. Well, if Naruto had his way they would be. Instead the group seemed more focused on talking about things on a grander scale. Things that they had absolutely no control over. Things that were beginning to get on his last nerve as he felt the chance of the zombies overhearing them inside and steadily overwhelming them with their numbers growing with every wasted second. You know, this is a lot like the Spanish flu in 1918. More than 600 million people were infected and 50 million people died from it. You remember how much panic and problems swine flu and COVID caused? Saya said as the group sat around talking. Not to be too disagreeable with you, but I think this is more like the Black Death from the 14th century. Shizuka pointed out. 1/3 of all of Europe's population died. You're smarter than you look. Saya gave the buxom nurse a backhanded compliment. So how did the outbreak finally end? Takashi asked. Well, there are many theories. It usually stops when too many humans die. There wouldn't be enough people to spread the disease. Shizuka answered. But now all the dead people still get up and move around and they start attacking you. Kota pointed out as he looked down over the walking corpses in the courtyard below. Are you trying to say there is no reason for this outbreak to stop? Siko asked. She knew well enough herself, but she did want it to be pushed into the open so that the group had to accept the reality that there was no end to this situation in sight. Ah. Shizuka brightened up. The weather is going to be hot. They might not be able to move if their flesh decomposes and they all become skeletons. No offense, but I don't think that sort of thing happens overnight. Sakura added in her input. How long exactly does it take for decomposition to happen? Siko asked Shizuka. In summer some parts of the body can become skeletal in about 20 days, but it takes considerably longer during winter. A couple months, that's not too terribly long. She said with a cheery tone trying to brighten the morale of the group. She was faculty after all, even if she was hardly half a decade older than some of the students. You're kidding, right? She's not smarter than she looks. Saya huffed. What are you trying to say, Saya? Takashi asked. It's pretty obvious what she is saying. Everything we know about death and decomposition is pretty much useless. Until this morning we knew for a fact that a dead person didn't just climb to their feet to hunt down others and eat them. So it's useless to try and speculate when this crap is all going to be over. Just as useless as lazing about in here wasting sunlight is when we should be trying to get to that bus. Naruto cut in moving to the center of the room. Look, Ray began to say. No, you look. All of you. It's already evening. The sun will set soon and if you thought dealing with these things was bad when we could easily see them all, then I gotta say it's gonna be a hell of a lot worse when it's dark out. They hunt with their ears, remember. We have to rely on our eyes to keep an advantage over them. We need to get the hell out of the school. Naruto continued to rant. Alright then, big shot, what the hell do we do? Takashi asked sharply. Yeah, if you are wanting to be so damn pushy about it, why don't you come up with an idea? Saya demanded. We already have a plan. First we need to find out if our families are safe, then we need to find a place to hold up for a while. Siko stepped into the brewing argument to calm everyone down. That doesn't get us any closer to getting out of here. Saya fired back. Naruto cleared his throat to gain everyone's attention again. Our best plan is to be as quiet as possible until we reach the bus. We'll form into teams and every team will have a job as we move toward the bus. Sakura, you stick close to Shizuka. You both will have to carry the medical supplies and handful of supplies we have. Sakura, if one gets past the rest of us, you protect Shizuka to the best of your ability. She's the only one of us that has real medical training. Naruto said. That's a good start. You, Takashi, and myself will make up the front of our little group. We'll take out the biggest threats and take the attention of the zombies if we draw their attention. We also need to keep an eye out for other survivors to help. Siko added in. Good, I want you three, Naruto said pointing at Saya, Kota, and Ray. To bring up the rear. Keep anything from sneaking up on the rest of us and jump in to help Sakura and Shizuka if you need to. Saya and Ray both looked a bit unhappy at taking commands from Naruto, but they complied. It was their best plan at the moment anyway. Just as Saya had said earlier, they all had no real option but to grow straight through the hordes of zombies on the campus. As they quietly edged along the halls they did their best to remain quiet. Occasionally, Naruto had to push his knife up into one of the heads of the zombies to clear it from their path, but most of the undead seemed to have moved away from the upper floors of the school where there weren't really any more humans to eat. At least apart from Naruto and his group. Let me be clear everyone. Siko said as they reached the top of the stairs. There's no need for you to get into a fight you can avoid. It's why we're being quiet. Only fight them if you have no choice. Otherwise try to go around them or just move past them quietly. The scream caught their attention and on another floor a small group of students had been cornered by more zombies. Naruto and his group wasted no time in coming to their rescue. Kota eliminated a couple with his homemade gun while Naruto, Takashi, and Siko closed the distance to the other group easily and killed everything in between them. Siko even showed off her superior skill with both her weapon and what Naruto could only describe as acrobatics as she launched herself over the railing that had separated their group from the stairwell and landed directly on top of one of the zombies, splattering its head across the floor with ease. Naruto and Takashi were close behind, with Takashi swinging his bat down onto the corpses and Naruto driving his knife up through the faces and ears of any in his path. The others did their part as well. Ray kept the approaching dead at bay as they heard the commotion and investigated. She didn't need to kill all of them and in fact just kicked most of them over the side of the stairs railing, causing them to plummet down to the concrete below. "Thank you," one of the girls said. Naruto let Siko, Takashi, and Ray handle speaking with the other survivors. They made sure they weren't bitten and offered to join together to escape. Naruto, though, kept his focus on the growing horde in the courtyard directly between themselves and the bus. Their only ticket out sat behind what amounted to a wall of the undead. But their numbers increased, the group continued down. There were times where they had to cut through corridors to other stairwells, either because of barricades getting in their way or large groups of zombies. Eventually leading them to the final few stairs into the main lobby of the school. The only issue was the main lobby was full to the brim with the undead milling about and moaning as they sought out someone to devour. From what we have all gathered, they are all pretty much blind and track us through sound, so it's pointless to hide like this. Saya complained. "Oh yeah? Wanna go first down there and test that theory?" Takashi asked. Saya simply huffed at his words and crossed her arms over her chest. "If we try to cut back, we might end up getting attacked and getting stuck," Siko pointed out. "The main doors and the main gate are our only choice anyway," Ray added in. "We're certain they only go after sound?" Sakura asked. "We could send someone to check out Saya's theory. Are you volunteering?" Siko asked. Naruto pushed past Takashi at that, startling the others. Especially Sakura. "Naruto, what are you doing?" she demanded in a loud whisper as he moved down the last few stairs toward the zombies. "Someone has to check this out and sitting around on the stairs is going to get us all killed," Naruto said simply as he stepped down onto the bottom floor. Takashi moved to take a step to follow him, to at least give him some backup, but Ray snapped a hand out and caught his sleeve. She clearly didn't want to lose someone else close to her again. And privately she was of the opinion that Naruto dying was no big deal compared to Takashi. Sakura frowned at the action, knowing immediately what went through the other girl's head and immediately thinking that in her opinion the opposite was more fitting. Takashi, so far as Sakura was concerned, was entirely expendable. Most of their group was, perhaps even including herself and Naruto. The only ones with proven skills to heal or repair things were Shizuka and Todoroki. Naruto slowly made his way down the stairs as Sakura, Siko, Takashi, and Ray all watched from the top of the last flight of stairs. He quietly walked out to the center of the room and began holding his breath as the undead moved past him. One came close enough to nearly bump into him before it slunk past him down a hallway. It was true. Just like he and the others had been thinking so far. They couldn't see. They hunted entirely by sound alone. With that information, Naruto happily picked up a bloody shoe in the middle of the floor. Its owner was probably slinking around somewhere among all the undead in that very room. He took aim and cocked the footwear down one of the nearby halls, managing to land it against an already busted window on one of the classroom doors. The glass shattered from the shoe and practically every zombie in the lobby turned to begin moving toward the sound of breaking glass. But the theory proven, Naruto waved for the others to come down and join him, and they quietly made their way to the front doors of the lobby and out into the courtyard. Of course, just as they looked to be home free, one of the boys they had saved on the stairwell managed to crack his weapon, a metal rod, against the stairway railing. The hollow pipe design the school used was an excellent conductor of sound, and with that simple act, the boy had literally rung the dinner bell. "Run!" Takashi cried. "Head straight for the bus, try to dodge around them instead of fighting," Naruto added in as he sidestepped a zombie reaching for him. It overextended and face planted on the concrete while Naruto and the others ran for safety as quickly and carefully as they could. "Takashi, why did you open your big mouth? We could have made it just by taking care of the close ones nearby if you had just." Saya began to rant only for Naruto to push her out of the way of a zombie near her and plant his knife in its eye. "Shut up and move, you spoiled idiot. What's done is done," he snarled as he snatched her by the arm and hauled her after him as they fled. "We can't kill them all. Just run for it," Siko said as she cracked another over the head. That's what they all did as well. They ran for it as fast as they could while trying their hardest not to be caught and cornered. They all silently knew that if they were bitten, then the others would be leaving them behind to die. That was how it worked after all. If you were bitten, it was already over. The organization that they had instilled in their group fell apart now. Naruto, Takashi, Siko, Ray, and Sakura lead the way as they did their best to try and carve a path for the others. The students that they had saved on the stairway were not as efficient and one by one found themselves separated from the group at large. Foolishly some of them tried to stop and fight. They were easily overwhelmed and devoured, screaming out for help that was not coming for them. Naomi, one of the girls even turned back to rejoin her boyfriend as he screamed for her to keep running. As some of their group argued over what she had done, Naruto, Siko, and Takashi had to remind them that now was not the time. Blurt or fight or whatever this shit is later. Naruto barked as he killed a zombie headed for the pair of Saya and Kota. This Shizuka. The key, hurry. Takashi cried as he cleared the last zombie between the nurse and the microbus, allowing the remainder of the group to quickly pile on board. Let's go, everyone that's left is on the bus. Siko said. You go, ladies first. Takashi said, letting Siko board before himself. Naruto hopped on next while joking. Age before beauty or whatever. Yeah, sure. Takashi said as he began getting on, only to stop at the bus's door. Humming across the courtyard was a group of students and a teacher. All of whom looked completely unarmed. Takashi held the door and waved for them to hurry up. It's Mr. Shido of Class 3A, Siko commented as the people on board watched the group running for their lives. Naruto gained some interest in that, mostly because he was surprised such a slimy guy as Shido was still alive. He didn't notice the shift in Rei who was standing beside him though. We can leave now. Shizuka called out as the bus started up. Wait, there's more people coming. Takashi said. If we don't move soon there will be too many in front of us. She replied. Just run them over. He snapped back. If there's too many it could flip the bus. Saya argued. Takashi clicked his teeth and moved toward the exit. Naruto was a bit stunned. They had just made it to safety. He wasn't excited by the idea of leaving others to die, but he really despised the idea of dying because they waited too long. Shido and his little group of students. His eyes widened though as Rei moved forward and grabbed Takashi by his jacket and held firmly. We don't have to save him. Jesus, what do you mean we don't have to save him? Takashi demanded. We don't have to help him. We should leave him here to die. She shouted, surprising the rest of the group. That's definitely got a story behind it. But look, it's too late now. If we left now it's only because we want them to die. They made it. Naruto said, as first the students that had been with Shido, or at least most of them, climbed on board followed soon enough by Shido himself. Naruto peered back at the path the teacher and his surviving students had taken. A single student was being ripped apart in the middle of the courtyard, though Naruto had been focusing on Rei and Takashi when whatever happened to him had happened. Everyone's on, Shizuka. Go. Naruto shouted and the nurse happily obliged. The nurse murmured to herself about the zombies in front of her not being alive anymore and not being people anymore as she crashed through them and the gate of the school. Their bodies bounced off of the vehicle loudly as she went, eventually ending with the loudest crash and screech of steel as the gate was thrown off of its track by the bus's bumper. But that they took off down the road toward the city down the hill where all manner of unknown threats awaited them along with a no doubt massive amount of the dead. Shizuka had slowed down once they had made it a decent distance away from the school. The group took a collective moment to catch their breath. Most of them could hardly believe they managed to escape. Some were smart enough to get to work checking themselves and what gear and supplies they had managed to grab over. Naruto cleaned up his knife while Sakura did her best to get her face and hair purged of blood. Siko cleaned her own weapon one seat across from them, while Kota worked on adjusting his makeshift gun to be easier to handle and a little more durable. I can't believe we made it. Takashi sighed out getting mumbled agreements from Kota and Rei. Thank God we did. Shido said as he stepped up the main aisle of the bus to stand among the group of students that hadn't escaped with him. I assume you are the appointed leader of your group. Siko glanced up at Shido, realizing he was speaking to her. She opened her mouth to answer, but before any words could even form Naruto interrupted her. She's not, but why are you asking? Naruto said as he turned around in his seat to stare up at Shido. Siko closed her mouth and eyed Naruto with a bit of interest. She could tell he was thinking about something, probably about something against Shido. She could support that. Oh, well, for humans to survive they need a leader. A leader who bears everything with valor and confidence. Shido began to speak as he turned to make a speech to the others on the bus. You'll regret this. Rei hissed to Takashi from the seat behind Naruto and Sakura, loud enough for only themselves and Takashi to hear. I guarantee that you'll regret that you helped him. Before either Rei or Shido could continue speaking to their listeners, the bus passed by the last of the trees blocking their view of the city. Even from up on top of the hill where their school had set they could tell things were not going well down amidst the city proper. Pillars of smoke drifted up above the rooftops. As they drew closer they couldn't help but also quiet down to match the eerie feeling that permeated the streets. Here and there they saw a zombie, but everything else seemed abandoned and dead silent. The eerie silence didn't last long though, and soon the people in the bus began arguing over what exactly to do. Like I said, it's only more dangerous if we keep going. I mean, first of all, why do we have to go with Kamuro and the others? Sonoda, one of Shido's favorite pupils, as he also ran for the track team that Shido coached. While the others continued arguing, Naruto moved out of his seat to quietly speak with Shizuka before nodding and moving back to his seat. He chose not to point out the struggle she seemed to be having with the uncomfortable seatbelt pushing up against her oversized boobs. He did enjoy watching them bounce as she tried to readjust though. You guys are set on going back to the city, but maybe we should turn around and find a place near the school or even inside it that could be safe. Sonoda continued. I kinda agree with Sonoda. We should barricade ourselves, one of the other boys began before suddenly everyone lurched forward as Shizuka slammed on the brakes. Alright everyone. That's enough. I can't focus on the driving with all of this yelling. Shizuka shouted, unintentionally giving everyone a look down her shirt as she leaned forward for emphasis. Yeah, whatever. Sonoda grumbled. Man, do you see that sway? One of the boys mumbled just loud enough for the others to hear as Shizuka's tit swung back and forth. Luckily for him, the rest of the bus was preoccupied with figuring out how they were going to remain alive. Look, how about you just tell us what it is you want to do? Siko asked Sonoda. Realizing he didn't have an actual plan of any kind, Sonoda tried to shift the blame by jabbing a finger in Takashi's direction. I just can't stand this guy. I hate him. But then Naruto decided to stand up. He was getting pretty tired of Sonoda shouting as well, and really the idea to look for everyone's family before getting a place to hunker down was the best they had. After all, Sakura and he were just waiting until his parents sent their people to get them, he hoped. The guy you hate is the only reason you got to get on this bus. If I had my way, I would have left your ass there. You haven't done anything but bitch since you got on. Those that don't pull their weight wind up dead, and those that bitch can't pull their weight because they're too busy bitching. Naruto said as he pushed his way into Tsunoda's face. Sit down, Tsunoda. Siko said sternly, backing Naruto up and getting a nod from him in return. What the hell did I even do to you to make you hate me anyway? Takashi said as he stood up. You know. Tsunoda shouted as he tried to push past Naruto to swing at the second year. Naruto twisted the sprinter's arm around him though and pushed his knife up just below the boy's eye. Shido began clapping as he moved forward from the back of the bus. Bravo. You really are impressive. I have to commend your skill, it is obvious how you survived this long. At any rate though, this further proves my point. Shido said, getting a series of narrowed eyes toward him. We need a leader. We do. Shido began. Surely you don't want such a weight on your shoulders. Actually, I think I like that. Yeah, I'm in charge, so why don't you help Sonoda back to his seat? Naruto said as he shoved the kid into the teacher, causing the man to stumble back from the impact. What? Shido asked. Surprised by Naruto's sudden move to take control of the group. He hadn't expected any of the students to try it, barring perhaps Siko. He noticed the look Naruto shot the girl he had expected a challenge from. He wanted her support. Siko further shocked him as she stood from her own seat. That's a good start. You take care of him for a moment, Mr. Shido. Shido bit back a retort and simply nodded his head. Naruto could play at being the leader for now. He would simply undermine him and the teens around him would show their fickle nature by putting him in control before long. After all, in all this chaos, they would want the comfort of an adult leading them soon. Thus be careful, Naruto. I can tell you are very skilled in a fight, but it takes much more than that to lead people. Wouldn't you all agree? Shido asked as he made a show of helping Tsunoda to a seat and checking over his arm that Naruto had twisted. Most of the others seemed eager to agree. After all, Shido had been the one to lead them out to the bus. None of them had seen him kill one of their fellow students like Naruto suspected he had. Not quite all of them hung on his words though. He noticed that one girl among Shido's half of the group, Mikuyuki, seemed a bit conflicted. He knew her well enough. Rumors spread around the school that she was a bit of a slut, and well, rumors had to start somewhere. She was one of the few that had known about his private time spent with their teacher Kyoko, and the only reason she hadn't ratted on him was because Naruto had known of her own private time spent with Coach Tajima. The high school version of mutually assured destruction. He kind of liked Miku. She was a classic bitch, but she was also really similar to himself. Right now, all she cared about was who would help her survive better in the long run, and Naruto intended to drag her along with him because as long as he could ensure she would be safe following him, she would be loyal to a fault. So what do we do now, leader? Shido asked with a bit of sarcasm. Simple, we need to get some more supplies. We are low on water and the food we have is pretty much made up of snack bars and chips. We also need better weapons. We'll head for the East Police Station. It will have everything we need and has the highest chance of having other people defending it still. Naruto said before looking at Shizuka. You know the way? Naruto asked. The nurse nodded and got back into the driver's seat. Soon the bus was underway once again, this time far more awkward than before. Naruto narrowed his eyes as Shido seemed to gradually gather the back half of the bus to his cause. He didn't overtly say anything against Naruto, but he made sure to play up his history back at school as a delinquent. The kids around him ate up everything he said happily. All but one. Miku sat a bit toward the edge of that group, listening in, but shifting her eyes to Naruto and the others frequently as well. Naruto had circled up his group as well. Rei had made it clear she despised and distrusted Shido, while Siko and Koda both supported her words against him, Koda even saying that Shido had encouraged bullies to beat on him at school and watched it happen. The man is a sadist and he'll try something before long, but we'll be ducking out of here before too long as well. Shizuka told me that the last club to use it forgot to fuel it back up. We'll be out of gas soon. We either need to abandon it with Shido and his group before then, or remove them and make our way to a gas station. Naruto said. You want to kill them? Takashi hissed in shock. I never said that shit. But I will tell you this, Shido and maybe Tsunoda wouldn't bat an eye to the idea of killing any one of us. Naruto insisted. Takashi, he's right. I think Shido will do anything to have power over us. Rei said. Takashi quieted down after that. He didn't want to jump the gun into hurting anyone that wasn't undead, but he would kill before he let them kill himself or worse Rei. The talk regarding what to do with Shido didn't need to continue after that. Instead they simply stayed close together, watching as Shido turned the others more and more against Naruto and the others. Despite taking the seats closest together, Naruto's group still ended up split into small little pieces. Naruto had taken the spot that a chaperone normally would on the bus and sat directly behind Shizuka, making sure he could take over if they needed a break. After all, with how slow they had to go from wrecked vehicles and other debris, they would be driving all night if they wanted to reach the police station. Siko and Sakura had sat beside one another just behind him with Takashi and Rei just across the aisle, and finally Saya and Koda sat behind Sakura and Siko as well. Naruto worked with Shizuka to plot the best path through the dark streets, while the others had small quiet conversations among themselves. For most of them Takashi and Rei seemed unable to keep their voices down to a level that Naruto, Siko, and Sakura couldn't hear. I wonder if anyone will come to rescue us. Rei mumbled. They're not coming. Takashi said bluntly, causing her to stare at him before it turned into a harsh glare. What? Why not? How can you be so sure? Rei demanded. It's just like the helicopters we saw from the roof of the school. They can't afford to be rescuing us. They might never be able to either. Takashi replied. Never? She asked softly. Then what are we supposed to do with no kind of help? We'll do whatever we can. That's pretty much it. Takashi replied. Rei glared harder at him before shaking slightly as her temper seemed to turn into disgust. God, you are so predictable. The glass isn't half empty, with you there is no glass. You've been like this since kindergarten. I only told you the truth. He snapped back. Well you don't have to be such a bummer about it you know. Rei fired back. Jesus Christ enough already. Fuck you two drive me crazy. Naruto hissed at them causing them both to lean back. Rei, what the fuck do you want him to say? You want him to tell you how everything is going to be fine, you just gotta hold on because the government cares about you in particular and is sending people to help you? It's not gonna happen. What makes you think they would take their time and resources to help us when the whole world is in the same situation? Naruto snapped at them. Hey, Shu Takashi began. No, you shut up, idiot. I am tired of hearing you two bicker. You are such a fucking when it comes to her. Man up. You tell it how it is, I like that, but damn dude, follow through with it. Stop letting her walk all over you. I forgot you two were back at the school, but I remember now. Sakura, you remember that boy that mopes all the time and follows a girl around like a lovesick idiot because he couldn't man up and ask her out? This is that couple. I mean damn dude, your buddy was fucking her anytime he wanted and you still followed her around like a puppy. I saw the moment the shit hit the fan you were there for her. God I am so tired of listening to the two of you. Naruto ranted. The group was silent after that until Siko stepped in. Sakura, why don't you and Rei go sit across from Saya and Koda? Sakura nodded and led Rei away. The younger girl was clearly upset after Naruto's words she despised being talked down to like that. Takashi was pretty upset too, but Siko didn't give him a chance to complain as she moved up beside Naruto in the chaperone seat. It was a tight squeeze as the seat was about 3/4 the size of a normal bus seat, still, she managed to wedge in beside him by pressing in tightly against his side. You need to calm down. Siko said lowly. I don't need a lecture. Get back in your seat, Siko. Naruto ordered. I supported you as leader because I know you have some admirable qualities despite being mostly a douchebag. Plus it kept Shido from being in charge. You are not going to boss me around like the others though. You need to work on how you speak to them too. A lot actually, you're really kind of an asshole. Siko said seriously. Naruto sighed as he nodded. She made some decent points. He didn't really want to be in charge, but it was better than Shido, and while he didn't want the job, he trusted himself more than the others. So, what do you want? He asked. To remind you that I am supporting you, but if you are going to be leading us, you need our support to do so. Her whining was annoying, I get that, but she was a normal high school girl till a few hours ago. Not a born and raised member of a crime family. Siko lectured him. Why didn't you stop me when I said you weren't a leader? You could be the one calling the shots. Naruto pointed out. I was never going to try for that role. I'll just help you a bit while you have to deal with it. Better for my health. Siko said with a smile. I never realized you had a sense of humor to you. Naruto joked. Getting an elbow to the gut from Siko. Oh dear. Shizuka said, pulling Naruto and Siko out of their conversation and up to their feet as they peered through the windshield at what had Shizuka on edge. It was a traffic jam. Police officers and even some soldiers organized the traffic as best as they could while the vehicles crawled forward. Loudspeakers reminded drivers and passengers to remain in their vehicles at all times, and the entire area was almost at a standstill. We're going to be here forever. Naruto realized with annoyance. At least there are police and defense force soldiers around to kill the zombies if they come. Shizuka tried to remain upbeat. Except this whole thing is going to be loud as shit and draw them from across the city. Naruto responded. He looked into the mirror and groaned as new arrivals boxed them in, and soon they were at the center of the traffic jam, with no way to turn around. We're sitting ducks here. Siko said worriedly. Yeah. Naruto agreed, but for now, there wasn't much they could do about it. As they crawled along, the lack of food became clear and Saya argued with Koda over his growling stomach. Outside police kept the undead at bay with military-style rifles. The sound of gunfire, repeatedly popping off around the crowded vehicles, had some of the group crying out in fear, only for Shido to move in and comfort them quickly. He was far too good at playing on people's fears. His reassurances only solidified his position over Naruto in the minds of the students that had come with him. Except for Miku who had moved up to the seat beside Takashi and begun asking him a few questions about their group and what they really planned to do when they found their families. Things with Shido are going to get out of hand the moment something starts going wrong. Siko mumbled to Naruto. I will be shocked if he waits that long. We'll just keep going for now. Maybe we can get across this damn bridge and be in a better position to ditch him and his flunkies then. Naruto replied. You were serious about that then? Siko realized. Of course I was. For all her whining and getting on my nerves, Rei is definitely right about that dude. He is a problem waiting to happen. Naruto said. Siko nodded as she glanced back to the back. Shido was already in charge of the back of the bus. She didn't doubt that if Naruto told the students back there to do something, they would refuse until Shido backed him up. It wouldn't be long until he started trying to split their group up as well. We are going to have to sleep soon. We'll have to do it in shifts. Get Takashi, Koda, Rei, and Sakura. No offense to Saya and Miku, but I am not 100% on board with them keeping an eye on Shido and his people. Naruto told Siko. I understand Miku, but why Saya? She asked. It's not that I think she would betray us. I just think that she is still putting up a brave face right now. The aggressive almost tsundere act while arguing with Koda. She's distracting herself, and if she is put on watch, alone while the rest of us sleep. Naruto trailed off as Siko nodded in understanding. Saya was kind of hard to read because she pushed such a hostile front toward everyone. At least she was content to mostly just make snide comments at the moment. Shizuka, tell me if you need to rest. I can take over. Naruto said. I will. I can go for a few more hours. She said, but Naruto could tell she was getting tired. At least they couldn't really get into a wreck in this crawling traffic jam. I'll take first watch. Pass the word on to the others to get some rest. Naruto said. Siko nodded before leaning over and telling Takashi and Miku the command. She then retook her seat next to Naruto, causing him to raise an eyebrow. You don't want to get back in your seat, maybe stretch out a bit to sleep? He asked. No, the seats are pretty hard. I'll just sleep here. She said. Sakura isn't going to be happy. Naruto commented. She didn't complain when you were with Miss Hayashi or those other girls at school. At least not much. I think she can handle me sleeping on your shoulder. Siko said as she leaned over on the surprisingly comfortable boy's arm. Naruto bit his tongue but chuckled slightly. He was beginning to like this little group they had made. It was weird, he wouldn't have been around most of these others unless he had to be in the past. Now though he actually wondered if he and Siko or he and some of the others could have gotten along. Some of them were out of the question, but it was an interesting thought. Chapter 3. The time is right. The bus was still caught in traffic by the time the sun came up. Thankfully, that had given them all something of a chance to get a little rest. It wasn't enough of course. Between taking shifts and generally being uncomfortable, they all still felt sore and exhausted. Naruto was struggling to rein in his annoyance as he rubbed his eyes for the 100th time. Siko made a lot of sense the night before when she had called him out on being such an asshole. He was. It was a matter of fact, he was being it seemed stupid, but remembering that his group was almost entirely made up of his classmates from school, he realized he probably should dial it back a bit. Unfortunately, he definitely got his personality from his mom. When she was stressed or angry, she was fucking mean. His dad was the opposite. Stress turned that man into a machine. Right now, Naruto wished he had that trait from his father rather than his looks. You know, you could probably sleep another hour or two. Siko said from beside him. She was clearly handling the lack of rest better than himself, or at least pretending to. No. Need to be up and looking like I'm running things. He grumbled back. Our little group won't stab you in the back for sleeping a little extra. We didn't really vote you in, but we are going to follow you. She replied. Maybe, but it's more because I don't want Shido to get any bold ideas. He's a disaster waiting to happen. Naruto replied. Siko simply nodded before standing up and heading back for her own seat. She was gone only a moment before Sakura dropped into the seat beside him with a scowl on her face. He raised an eyebrow at her, but she didn't say anything. She didn't usually say anything to him anyway. At least with Hayashi back at school, she had targeted her and only gave him a bit of lip here and there. It probably fit too well with the delinquent personality he played up. Something that she was actually incredibly attracted to. Did you get some rest? He asked her. A little, she replied as she dropped her scowl. What is the plan? She asked him. Naruto sighed at that. Unfortunately, as long as we are stuck here on the bus, there isn't a lot we can do. However, if shit hits the fan, we'll go out the emergency hatch on the roof and jump from car to car. The little bit of space between vehicles will be clogged up with people and zombies if they break through the defense forces. Sounds like a plan. Just us? She asked. He watched as her eyes shot back towards Siko. We'll take a few with us if we can. Shizuka is a nurse, Kota built a fucking gun from stuff he could find in the school, and Saya has connections that we might need. He explained, getting her to nod as he listed off people. Siko is dependable and strong, plus she has connections too. Naruto added, causing her to frown. What about Rei, Takashi, and the rest? If they come, then they come. Not Shido or that fucker Tsunoda though. Both stopped to listen as Shido began loudly speaking with those at the back of the bus. Exactly. That's why we should secure a safe place first. Then we can make moves together rather than making random moves on our own. I'm sure we can trust that much to our esteemed leader. Truly, we should wait until we're all ready to act as a disciplined and focused group to confirm the safety of our family members. Going off half-cocked on our own will only lead to inevitable tragedy. Shido was clearly making a point to show he had an idea for what they should be doing. It didn't matter much though, it pretty much amounted to Naruto's plan for the moment anyway. Instead, Naruto briefly turned his attention to the happenings outside. Lines of exhausted pedestrians were led along by police while the traffic jam inched forward. The sun was out and bright, and if it wasn't for the panicked actions of the people or the blood on himself and the others, he could almost imagine that everything that had happened was really a dream. Unfortunately, he could still smell the mix of blood and sweat permeating off of all of them and stinking up the microbus. All of it was real, and it would surely only be a matter of time before they were fighting for their lives again. I need to stretch. He grumbled as he stood and did exactly as he had said. However, it also gave him the opportunity to get a bit of a better look at the situation on the bus without seeming like he was getting jumpy or paranoid. Shido's confidence was best handled with his own. Saya and Kota were talking about people's plans to evacuate. Surprisingly, planes were still occasionally going by overhead, which meant that, like this roadway, the government still had some semblance of control. How long that would last was anyone's guess. The girl made a decent point though. No doubt a lot of people would be headed to the airport, unfortunately that made more problems than solutions, and unless the military was up to the task, that path for an escape would evaporate in no time at all. Besides, Naruto and Sakura by extension had no plans on leaving the city. As much as it made sense for the average person to evacuate the city, the Namikaze family and their affiliates had a much safer bet in the city. Especially if the government abandoned it. After all, who would the people left behind turn to in the absence of governmental law and order? If he knew his parents and their business partners at all, he was pretty certain they were already making moves to set themselves up for the long term. He just hoped that they were okay while they were doing it. Naruto? Sakura suddenly asked him, causing him to slip in beside her in a seat. What's up? He asked. Have you heard anything from your parents or mine? She bit her lip knowing the answer already. He wouldn't have kept anything like that from her. I've left my phone off to save battery. I don't want to use it again with so many people here. He said in a hushed tone. Yeah, it'd be like having gum in class. She chuckled before leaning back in her seat. Now that there's no adrenaline or anything, this whole escape thing feels pretty boring. It won't be for long. Naruto pointed out before Lachlan lightly. You turning into an adrenaline junkie or something? No, but well, sitting around for so long makes me feel vulnerable. Naruto sighed but nodded. Yeah, I feel the same. He turned his head back toward the aisle of the bus as he overheard Saya and Kota talking once more. I'd probably seclude myself. Kota suggested as the best way to remain safe. What would happen if everyone in this world starts thinking that way? Saya asked back. Now this conversation was interesting and something that he wanted to be a part of after he let them both speak their mind to one another, of course. What if they all start focusing only on keeping their community as small as possible in order to survive? Saya continued. You really ask some very relevant questions, you know that. Kota said a bit nervously at the thought. Naruto decided that was the best point to chime in. He's right. The answer is after securing a safe place it becomes time to expand it. Saya and Kota both turned their attention to him, though they weren't the only ones. He could tell most of those, at least at the front of the bus, were paying attention to what he said. He could also see Shido eyeing him as he sat beside Mickey. The girl glanced up at him a bit cautiously but didn't argue with it either. While some will try to simply bunker down and wait things out, they will eventually run out of supplies and be forced to try and find more. They are just putting off their risk further down the road. Those that set up a system to steadily grow their safe area outward and eliminate the infected around them will become self-sufficient in time and even be able to interact with other groups doing the same. Naruto explained. That makes sense, but shouldn't the military be doing that? I mean, you are all schoolchildren, it's best for you to find a place to remain safe and await adults who know what they are doing to plot the best course from there. Shido interjected, drawing the rest of the bus into the conversation. Naruto turned to him directly and smiled. Of course, that is the plan already. After all, Sakura and I got a hold of my parents and their associates yesterday afternoon, they were already in the process of doing as I said. He enjoyed the sudden change in the man's eyes. Not so smug now. Wait, you got a hold of them? One of the girls with Shido asked. Forget that, why the hell would we care if your mommy and daddy promised to come save you? Sonoda stood up. Sit down, Sonoda. Ask your teacher who they are if you really want to know. You know of them well enough, right, Mr. Shido? Naruto smiled wickedly at the man. Shido seemed to scowl at him a moment before the smug look slipped back onto his face and Naruto immediately felt on guard. Ah, Naruto's family is rather well known and quite big. They are involved with several high-ranking people around the city and the nation, as well as several of your parents if I recall. Shido said while looking over many of the students at the front of the bus. So wait, they really will come bail us out? Sonoda asked a bit surprised. I'm sure they could if they knew where we were going. Sadly, I fear they may be thinking that our brave leader was meant to find a secure place back at the school to hide out until they could send someone to help. We're a long ways from there now. Shido was overdramatic as usual, and Naruto really wished they had left his ass off of the bus when they escaped. You dumbus. Sonoda roared. Wait, Sonoda. Perhaps I misunderstood. Do you perhaps have a way to communicate with them to tell them where to find us all at, Naruto? Shido asked, playing up his mature act for all of them. He couldn't let them know about his phone though. It might end up being the only way that his parents could find him, Sakura, and whoever would be coming with them. His silence was enough of an answer for the others. You don't? What a shame, really. Shido said as he dropped into a seat like he was dealt a blow. The students surrounding him looked worriedly toward him, almost asking him what to do without words, and even Mickey seemed to lean in toward him. Thankfully the others were far less inclined toward it. A few clearly saw through the man's actions as nothing but manipulation of the group at large, while others simply disliked the man. Good on them. Better on Sakura for saving the day. We are going to go to one of my father's branch offices in the East District. He works closely with Naruto's parents, and they have some supplies tucked away in every office for a natural disaster, not that zombies were probably ever on their mind. Sakura said, sending a ripple of relief through the students, though Shido seemed suspicious of the lie. The few smarter students were as well, but it didn't matter. It kept them going for the time being. Why not just say that? Sonoda bit out. Simple, if plans had to change, then no one would get discouraged. Naruto and Sakura came to myself and Miss Shizuka with the information, so we knew the plan. Siko added to the lie. Oh, huh? Yeah. Though we are still going to that police station for things, correct? Shizuka asked. Yeah, I thought it would be a good stop on the way. Then once we are at the branch office we can try to get a hold of everyone's families and see if we can get them to the office as well, or at least direct them on where to go. Naruto took back over, causing Shido to stand up suddenly. What enviable strategizing on your behalf. Though I must question your decision to hide so much from the rest of us. It makes me worried that you are hiding other things, not that I would suggest you are. Just that I hope you will be more transparent with all of us from now on. Our lives are in your hands now, leader. Shido said before standing and returning to the back of the bus, but not before stroking a hand down the side of Mickey's face, seeming almost like he was comforting her, but looking far more inappropriate to Naruto. Infected toppled over the top of the barricades as Kushina watched her husband and his hand-picked men go to work. The blonde rammed a blade down into one of the corpse's skulls before pulling it out and planting it through the eye of another. Minato always had a bit of a thing for using knives in their work and had even made a bit of a name for himself using them when they settled into the city. She preferred guns. There was just something so much more comfortable with pulling a little trigger and getting the job done than having to do all that work her husband somehow enjoyed. Kushina stepped back from an approaching zombie before leveling her custom-ordered 1911 with its head and putting a .45-sized hole right between its eyes. Minato, if my son is pulling the shit you have been today, we are having a family meeting about the use of knives. She whined toward her husband as she stepped over the body while dropping a couple rounds into another pair of approaching zombies. Minato chuckled before grunting as he freed his blade from the back of another target's head. Why would he be doing that? He asked nonchalantly while kicking another one's knee out and bringing his blade down through the top of its cranium. "'Cause you gave him all your bad habits." The woman hissed back before popping the head of what had once likely been a very nice little old lady. As Minato and Kushina continued to talk while easily carving through the undead around them, one of Minato's men, a scarred young man with short black hair, leaned in close to his companions. "No one else get weirded out by how well they are handling all of this?" he asked. "They're trying to distract themselves, Obito. They're worried about Naruto," his silver-haired partner commented. "Naruto will be fine, Kushina talked to him yesterday and the kid is just like the two of them," Obito scoffed. "It doesn't stop them worrying. They are his parents after all." A young woman with brown hair added in. "As long as he keeps his head on his shoulders and stays away from big crowds of people, he should be fine. We'll have the perimeter properly established around the safe areas soon and we can go and get him wherever he is." Obito replied with full confidence in his boss's son. "Boy, are you three taking a break?" Kushina said as she strode toward them, stopping to put a shot into the back of the head of a crawling zombie. Sorry Miss Kushina," Rin said before racking the charging handle on her rifle. "Always apologizing. I really don't get how Minato pulled you into this business, Rin. You're far too sweet." "All things considered, I figure it's probably a good thing about now." Kakashi chimed in as he kicked over a corpse to make sure it was in fact just a corpse and not about to stand up and attack him. Minato joined them a moment later with a small smile on his blood-splattered face. Kushina rolled her eyes before pulling out a handkerchief and trying to wipe his face clean. As she did so, the younger three of their team took on the duty of eliminating the few stragglers that they had in the street. Team 2 is finishing up with the southern approach. The rest of the crew is still getting the concrete barricades put into place and Team 3 ran into some crazy kid with a switchblade. He tried to grab a hold of some girl before they put a round through his skull. Minato told her. Kushina frowned and continued to wipe at the specks of blood on his face. "Hey." He reached out and took hold of either side of her face gently. "He's got nothing to worry about from these things. He's got too much of his mother in him. Red hot habanero, but male and yellow. It's not really the walking corpses I'm worried about. People are going to lose it and some dumbus with more bullets than brains is bound to be between us and him," Kushina said seriously. "Have faith in him. He's fine and he's probably taking care of Sakura too," Minato said with a smile. Kushina frowned even further. "I hope she doesn't blame us. If she does, it won't be long. She's a smart girl and there was nothing you could have done, Kushina," he reassured her. "I know, still. Emotions tend to make even smart people act poorly." "True enough. We don't have a lot of gas left," Shizuka said to Naruto as he stared at time on the dash turning to 3 in the afternoon. "Honestly, I'm surprised it's lasted this long. The fuel light is officially on now though," Siko said from beside him. Naruto nodded as he turned to look at those that had become his sort of de facto counsel for their little group. Shizuka was a given, she was the only one with real medical knowledge and the one that had the microbus keys. Sakura was also a given, benign as she was the only one he was certain he could completely rely on. Following those two, Siko had somehow become his sort of second in their group. Others followed her and she had chosen to follow him, for now at least. It made things a bit easier in dealing with the other kids, most of whom had less than stellar opinions of him. "He's giving another speech back there," Saya said as she slipped up to space beside Takashi and Rei. "Let him talk. We're going to have to abandon the bus soon and he can have it all he wants. He and this family bullshit he's talking about now." Naruto shrugged. He sounds like a cult leader. Siko groaned as Shido picked up in volume. He doesn't sound like one, he practically is one. Look at them, they're all eating out of his palms. Saya agreed. Sure enough, the majority of students that Shido had brought along with him were pretty much enraptured by the man as he spoke of how they should be proud to have made it this far and that it was their unity as a family that made it happen or some shit. They made it this far because Takashi kept the bus door open. That's not unity in my book. Sakura scoffed. They're terrified, and as fucked up as it is, he gives them comfort. Most people just want to feel reassured and safe in times of distress. Humanity is stupid as a rule, the more charismatic people usually end up like wolves, surrounded by an endless flock of sheep. Naruto said with a roll of his shoulders. Odd, that's grim. Saya complained. Zombies ate most of the city in the last 12 hours, and you think me pointing out that people suck as a general rule is grim? He laughed. Siko subtly stepped on his foot, causing him to wince before his laugh turned into more of a bitter chuckle. There's exceptions, of course. I mean, look at how things are going in here. Several of us are sucked in by his words, a few are listening to both sides and waiting to see which way the wind blows, and the rest of us are up here planning to make it out of the next shit show that comes our way. Humans may generally be dumb, but we've made it this far because that fact isn't universal. Ugh, shut up, you sound like him. Ray bit out, causing Naruto to glare at her before taking a calming breath. Yeah, that's fair and entirely gross for me. He said before turning his eyes to the world outside. How long before the engine dies? Siko asked Shizuka. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe an hour if we are lucky. The blonde woman said worriedly. Naruto started taking in the surroundings of the bus. They were still locked in place in the traffic jam. In fact, they hadn't moved much in the last several hours, and if he climbed on top of the bus, he could probably pick out where they had started when first getting stuck into the crowd. Beyond that, pedestrians were still passing by in droves. Huge crowds, still somewhat organized, kept passing them by, while police and security forces kept the edges of the area clear as best as they could. As it turned out, a combination of shields and batons with cover from riflemen was an excellent tactic for breaking down a small horde of the undead and finishing them off. If the plan hasn't changed, we have to somehow get across Onbetsu Bridge and head to the East Police Station. Or if we can't get there, to the branch office that Sakura mentioned. Siko pointed out. So we really will be ditching the bus soon then? Koda asked. We'll have to. Siko said. So, once we're at the branch office we'll start heading to get people's families somehow. Where does everyone live? Shizuka asked. My family will come to us, Sakura and I are from homes closer to the center of the city, so thankfully we aren't heading there. Naruto said with a shrug. What about you, Siko, aren't you worried about your family? Saya asked. Not really. My father is my only family and he should be overseas at the moment. Honestly, I'm only concerned about a couple that are here with us. The girl replied easily. Not even yourself? Saya asked a bit sarcastically. Nope. I mean, honestly, look at me, if anyone was going to do well in this mess. She trailed off with a grin toward the younger girl. Where do you live at, Saya? Sakura chimed in. Oh, actually on the east side of the river, same as Takashi and Ray. My parents are out of town, but I'll be happy to go that way if it's the way Saya is going. Koda said with a blush on his face. You. She replied simply, causing him to drop back into his seat with a pout. Where are your parents then, Koda? Close by. Siko asked. My father is a jewelry merchant, so he's gone to Amsterdam to buy stones, and my mother is a fashion designer who's in Paris too. He began, causing Saya to interrupt him and scold him about lying, as most of the others chuckled at the boy's odd humor. And if it were a manga, the daddy would be the captain of a cruise ship, a giant luxury liner. Shizuka added in. Oh, my granddad actually was. And my grandmother was a concert violinist. Koda continued on, laughing awkwardly. Wait, for real? Naruto said in shock. Damn dude, that's something. Sakura leaned away so the boy couldn't hear and mumbled about how good he'd have had it if he had been better looking. Saya simply nodded in agreement from beside her. Well, that settles things for me. I've decided to come along with all of you for sure. Shizuka said as she put the parking brake on the bus and stood up. Are you sure? Saya asked her. My parents passed away years ago and my other relatives all live far away. I probably should try to help the other students as well, but honestly I think Mr. Shido is kind of a douchebag. Shizuka admitted. Naruto cackled at that before nodding. So that's it then. It's time. Taking a breath, he pushed past the rest of his little group and moved to stand in the aisle, interrupting Shido's most recent diatribe against disunity. Oh, fair leader, what's the issue? Has something happened? He asked with his typical smarmy expression. Nah, just came to a decision after speaking with some of my closer friends here. Naruto said with a shrug. Shido was a bit caught off guard by that but smiled all the same. Did you, now? And what did you decide for the rest of us? The looks on the faces of those toward the back of the bus darkened thanks to Shido's words. Nothing. You all hate the idea of me making your decisions for you, I'm leaving the decision up to you. I, along with a few others, am leaving this bus to strike out on foot. You can come with me or you can stay here and enjoy the traffic jam. You decide. Naruto said simply before pivoting and simply heading to the door and opening it before stepping off the bus and making for the sidewalk. What? That's ridiculous. Surely the rest of you, Shido began before the others all started making their way off the bus as well. Sakura and Siko were right behind Naruto as he had gone closely followed by Saya, Rei, Kota, and Takashi, who glanced back a couple of times before following the rest. Nikki surprised Shido the most, but he still remained motionless until Shizuka made to leave with them as well. Miss Marikawa, wait. Shido said before grabbing a hold of her arm as she stepped off the bus, leaving himself hanging out of the doorway. Let go of me. She shouted, causing the others to turn and see what was going on. I can't, you see, losing the doctor of our little group simply won't do, besides you have a duty to safeguard these good students still aboard the school bus, wouldn't you say? The man grinned almost animalistically as he pulled at her arm. He snapped it back in a flash with a shout of pain a moment later. Just above his wrist and his forearm, a nail was embedded and blood leaked around it. Why you shot me, you little psycho? Shido screamed as Kota stepped forward and moved his aim toward the man's head. Naruto and Siko gently pulled Shizuka into the group at large as Shido stared down the boy that had just made him bleed. I could have put it in your eye, douchebag. Kota said calmly as he glared at the man. That's not like you at all. You're not violent. Shido said as if still in disbelief of the obvious facts. I wonder how many of my fellow students I killed yesterday. Honestly, even I don't really know. I like some of them, you know. I fucking hate you. I'd be fine with killing you for all the times you made fun of me. I've been holding back for a really long time. All cause I just wanted to live a normal life. I don't need to do that anymore. Kota's expression slowly shifted to a broad grin. Nothing is normal anymore. That's why I'm able to kill now. Shit, I can kill living ones too, maybe start with assholes like you who made my life such a pain in the ass before now. Kota grinned the entire time he spoke. Then the tension was cut with a laugh from Naruto. Damn dude. Glad I'm on your fucking side. Anyway, you heard him, Shido, get back on the bus or I'll let him fill you with more nails than a hardware store. Go on, Shu. Naruto said while making a sign to ward off evil spirits, getting the others to chuckle a bit. Impressive, Kota. You're a hell of a man. Siko praised him, causing the boy to blush brightly. We should get going, it's already in the afternoon. Time's going to pass by quickly and it will be dark. Let's get moving then. I'll take point. Kota said with a gung-ho macho stance to back it up. Sure man, it's all you. Naruto said, finally feeling a bit better now that they were off the bus. With his group he felt a lot less under threat of idiocy getting himself and Sakura killed. So which way, leader? Siko asked Naruto, bringing him up short. He frowned a bit when all of the others turned to him expectantly as well. It seemed as though that would be a continuing theme despite getting off of the bus. We'll follow the road for now, we need to check the status of Onbetsu Bridge if we hope to use it get across. Naruto said, getting nods from the group before they began heading out. Chapter 4. But the sun set. Naruto panted lightly as he brought the tire iron he'd found down into a walking corpse. It was the seventh he had splattered across the concrete of the sidewalk in the last minute. His muscles were aching already and his breath was coming in fast, but they had almost cleared out the small group of zombies trying to surround them. Luckily the others in his group were capable of carrying their own weight, otherwise he might have been in some real trouble. As it was, they were all starting to feel the strain now and the sun was starting to hang pretty low in the sky, casting long shadows over them as they fought on to try and clear a path once more. I'm almost out of nails, Kota commented as he began picking his shots a bit more carefully. Well, make sure you have something sturdy as a backup. I don't know when we'll be able to get either better weapons or more nails for you, man. Naruto replied as he planted his foot into the chest of some undead grandpa and sent him tumbling over the railing into the river below. Siko slipped past him to bring her bakken down onto the head of some former wanted thug, based on his clothes. With a soft crunch the zombie crumpled at her feet and she transitioned into a sideways swing that dented the head of a policeman. Sakura was at her side in an instant, planting the crowbar she'd been using into the cop's face, effectively tearing his head open and dropping him for good. Thanks. Siko said toward the other girl, only for Sakura to huff out a breath and return to Naruto's side. The blonde boy shot Siko a small apologetic look before reaching out and squeezing Sakura's shoulder lightly. They all had a chance to take a small breath now as Takashi brained the last of the undead around them with the pipe he had. Let's catch our breath and strategize for a bit. Naruto said, getting some relieved sighs from the others as well as some slightly annoyed looks. Do we really have the luxury to just be standing around? Saya asked. We need a moment. Siko replied with a bit of bite in her voice. Even she was starting to feel the strain a bit. The crowds on the main road headed toward the bridge are drawing more of the zombies toward them, so as long as we are nearby, we are going to catch pieces of the horde trying to get to all the refugees. Sakura pointed out for the group. Which means we shouldn't stay here. Saya urged. We aren't going to. We just need a moment to think of where we are going. Naruto replied, trying very hard to keep his tone even. Despite the fact he had a few choice words for the girl. She wasn't in the defensive line braining the undead, even Rei was doing her part while Saya was hanging back with the nurse. I thought you said we were going to the East District Police Station then to Sakura's family's office. Takashi said as he took a seat on the stairs to catch his own breath. We were. Except I imagine all the bridges look just like that one. Naruto said, lifting his hand to point at the one a little ways upriver from them. A military barricade blocked the bridge and only a small handful of people were being permitted through after an intense screening process. A much larger group of people had attempted to push through earlier, only to end up shot and dumped over the side of the bridge's railings. Every now and then another fool tried it again and was sent drifting down the river past Naruto and his fellows. So what then? Saya asked. Well, I don't really like our chances of swimming across. Plus I bet that's a great way to get popped by some asshole with a real gun sitting on the other side. Naruto grumbled out. The group fell silent at that. Seeing the military readily killing any who disobeyed their directives made it pretty clear that they most definitely would kill them even if they found a way to get across the strong current of the water. Undoubtedly all of the bridges to the East District were similarly blocked off, and from the looks across the river, barricades and other military-style structures were rapidly sprouting up in the middle of streets and on buildings. Have they just abandoned the majority of the city then? Sakura asked as they watched a distant crew of army engineers rapidly work to plant concrete barricades in a roadway and mount actual machine guns and razor wire on them. I doubt they really have, but they are probably setting up a safe zone while they try to retake the city. Siko replied. Hopefully they don't just sit around and actually start making some progress. Rei chimed in. Either way that doesn't help us right now. Unless we were at the front of that line up there, we are on our own. Saya pointed out as she motioned toward the veritable horde of refugees stalled out at the bridge entrance. We aren't making it to the other side before the sun sets. We need to come up with a plan for the meantime before we can figure out a way across the river. Sitting on the streets nearby, that zombie buffet up there is a death sentence in the dark. Naruto said as he slowly paced. Well, Takashi asked, causing Naruto to pause as the others were all looking at him. He sighed. Listen, I'm trying to think, but besides kicking in someone's door and taking over their apartment for the night, I'm kinda grasping at straws. We just need somewhere to lay low for a while. Well, we aren't too far from my friend's place. It might be kind of hard to get there being on the other side of the crowd though. Shizuka pointed out. Really? Naruto asked suddenly, feeling a bit more hopeful. Miss Shizuka, is your boyfriend even going to be there to let us in? Sakura asked too innocently as Saya grinned beside her. Shizuka gasped and waved her hands back and forth. It's nothing like that. It's my girlfriend's apartment. I look after it for her when she's out of town and I have a key. That's all. That's fine. Tell me more about the building. Naruto said as he gently grabbed the woman by her arm to make her focus. Shizuka blinked at him for a moment before clearing her throat. She described the apartment building to him. Really, it was more of a duplex, a large one at that. It had a security fence, sturdy construction. Best of all, it had multiple floors and roof access that would let them be able to get a better vantage on the neighborhood to see how things were going on around them. It would serve perfectly, but Naruto wasn't willing to lock them up in that little fort before they had some necessities. Besides that, they also had to get onto the other side of the crowd of refugees and back into the city to head toward the neighborhood Shizuka was talking about. Not a lot of time until sunset. We'll be fighting in the dark to get there. We have to go now. Naruto said as the others nodded and followed him up the stairs toward the crowded roads above. Minato and Kushina watched out over the plaza of Yozo Towers. Floodlights gradually came on, bathing the area in bright light to help the night shift security keep things in hand. The rapidly constructed walls surrounding the block were immense things for having been built so quickly, and the plaza was still chock full of construction equipment and other machinery. The south wall's outer layer is finished up. Abito reported as he passed by, headed toward the bathroom for the Namikaze family suite. He had his own apartment, but Minato had practically raised him and his friends since taking them in nearly 20 years prior. The concrete should keep the zombies out easily enough, but I still won't feel comfortable enough with it until the inner parts of the wall are finished. Kushina commented. Fair enough. The work crews need rest though, and as long as the concrete is up, we have a window that they can get some sleep. Shikaku assured me that he has a crew starting back up in about 4 hours with other shifts all coming back to work every couple of hours from then on. Minato reassured her. Kushina nodded before looking at the completed section of the walls surrounding the plaza below them. Split into two 8-foot-tall sections, the concrete was nearly 2 foot wide in the lower section, with a thinner 6-inch section on top. In total the wall was 16 feet high and surrounded the entire perimeter of the area that the Namikaze group had cleared out. The concrete was just the outer layer though. While some areas only had that much completed so far, some sections had freight containers converted into interconnected bunkers and gangways that allowed them to reinforce the concrete and drill gun wells into the concrete so that defenders could eliminate zombies or other hazards approaching the walls. Most notably though, was the makeshift gatehouse that had been built. Once an artistic archway over the outer part of the plaza, steel and wire had been welded to the frame to turn it into a hardpoint with ladders temporarily used to scale it until stairs could be installed. In the narrow path underneath, another freight container had been forced into it, allowing for a double gate in and out of the Namikaze safe zone. Even though it was incomplete, Yozo Towers was now the safest location in the city. Some military official reached out about an hour ago. Minato said as he looked over toward his wife. And? She asked. It's not looking good for them. The safety lines for the refugees keep getting pushed further back. Before long they'll be at the bridges themselves. Kushina remained silent, knowing she wouldn't like what he brought up next. They formally requested to begin diverting survivors toward Yozo Towers. And you told them yes, Kushina sighed out. No. I told them that we are only accepting people with affiliation to the Namikaze group at the moment. All others are being turned away or shot. She turned toward him in surprise. That's not true at all. You even cleared out half of the building to turn into makeshift bunk rooms for people. We've taken nearly 300 refugees in. We don't need the military sending more our way. We don't need them trying to undermine us with those that are already sick and injured either. Their lines are collapsing back toward the river and the East District, but from what I have heard things across the river aren't perfect either. We have the only actual safe zone in the city. We can't put it at risk. Minato said stoically. Kushina frowned but nodded. Minato was naturally a charitable and caring person. Ironic considering his line of work and his skill with it. The seriousness in his tone as he spoke now though drove home how much the situation was eating at him. He wanted to help people. He had the ability and the resources to help people. The sad truth was that he couldn't help everyone though. As Kushina watched through the windows of the high-rise out toward the city, she saw fires burning into the night and battles between survivors and zombies or at times other survivors. A handful of aircraft would pass by every now and then, but they were becoming more and more rare. Let's just hope Naruto and Sakura aren't anywhere near the bridgeheads and refugee crowds. Those are bound to get swarmed tonight according to our helicopter pilot. The main hordes of the infected are being drawn toward the crowd's noise. Minato commented. Gunfire barked out in continuous blasts all around them as people screamed and plunged themselves into a chaotic mess. Zombies intermixed with the crowd and attacked whoever was nearest to them, while the soldiers and police began transitioning their aim to the crowd as orders changed to stop anything from passing their checkpoint. Stay down. Naruto harshly whispered to his group as they remained hidden within a stairwell. We can't stay here. Takashi pointed out as a couple of people sprinted past them to escape the guns and infected. We won't. Move where I move when I tell you. Naruto told the others. Move where? Seize demanded. Just follow my path, one at a time and stay down. Naruto hissed back before taking off in a crouched run to the back of a van that had caught fire and burned up over the last few minutes of chaos. Naruto paused there for a moment before looking for his next spot to take cover. There was a red car near him, but its windows were broken out and a pair of zombies were desperately trying to crawl out of it. Plus it was occasionally peppered by rounds from the guards nearer to the checkpoint. The better option was the pair of concrete barricades in what used to be the meridian of the road. They were further out though, and he would have to risk running to it and being spotted by the men firing at everything running around. Still better that than being bitten. He turned back and waved for the next member of the group to join him. Kakashi crossed the gap easily enough and Naruto dared to risk checking the situation with the soldiers. Luckily they were distracted as several civilians had attempted to force their way through as they were getting shot at. Some had even gotten close enough to try and fight over the guns the handful of men had. Naruto doubted they would win. The crowd outnumbered the soldiers more than 50-1, but the troops had rifles and the like and most were in makeshift defenses. Even if they won there was still the fact the zombies were only showing up in greater and greater numbers. So where next? Takashi asked as he joined him. Those barricades there. But this can is big enough for everyone to hide behind if we squeeze in close. So let's get them up here while we can. Naruto said before running back across the gap, a bit less low than he had before. The soldiers had bigger issues at the moment. Why did you come back? Sakura asked worriedly. Slight change of plans. We all moved together. Now, to the van. Naruto commanded before rushing back to where Takashi was kneeling. Alright, now what? Siko asked. Follow my path, split into groups of 3. Me, Sakura and Shizuka will go first. Rei, Saya and Siko in the second group. Takashi, Kota and Miku will bring up the rear. Lion says began to argue about the groups. Because only 5 of 6 of us can fit behind those barricades. I can't see a good path from there to the other side of the road without being there though. Naruto cut her off knowing her complaint. Fine. But Rei started to say before being cut off. We don't have time to discuss groups. Naruto said as he tightly gripped Sakura and Shizuka by their shirts and led them in a crouching run to the barricade without issue. Sakura looked annoyed by being handled so roughly but she didn't complain. At least she was with Naruto at the moment and closer to safety than the rest of the group. Where next? Sakura asked Naruto as he scanned the area ahead of them. People still ran past now and again, but now it was more zombies than survivors, while those still alive fled the area. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, it also looked like most of the soldiers had been overwhelmed by the mob of civilians. Lots of zombies ahead. The shooting isn't as bad though. As if to remind him that it wasn't a non-issue, several of the zombies collapsed as bullets tore through their heads, spraying blood and brains all over. There is another stairwell over there. We can take that path into the residential area past the highway. It's more than twice as far as the gap from that van to here was though. Sakura nodded before gasping, causing Naruto to jerk his head around, only to be met not with a threat, but with the second group joining them. You were taking too long. Siko said simply, cutting off any bitching Saya had ready for him. Fair enough. The next spot is a ways, but it's doable. That stairwell. Siko, you lead everyone here and I'll move over with the last group. Naruto said, getting a nod from the girl after a brief pause. Get going. He ordered and they all ran for the stairwell with Siko having to smack a pair of zombies along the way to protect the group. Okay, almost all done. Naruto blew out a sight before pressing himself into cover again as more concentrated gunfire suddenly blasted another set of zombies as well as a fleeing pair of survivors. With a cautious peek at the soldiers at the checkpoint, he grimaced as reinforcements seemed to have arrived and deployed with more automatic weapons. They still had no choice though. Eventually either the zombies would get them or the soldiers would clear the area and kill everyone. Kakashi. Now or never. Naruto barked out while waving him forward. The other boy nodded and he and the other 2 began running across the gap. Narrowly avoiding a set of bullets smacking into the red car as they passed by it. Holy shit, that was close. Miku said as she practically collapsed beside Naruto. The girl hadn't really said anything since joining them and ditching the bus. She felt like an outsider half the time, but she was smart enough to know sticking with the group was her best chance of living. We aren't through yet. This next part is the hard part. We have to get to that stairwell. Naruto pointed it out to them where Sakura, Rei and Siko peeked out at them. Never thought that crossing the road would seem tough. Takashi grumbled. Welcome to the apocalypse. Naruto shrugged. Alright, no point in waiting around and getting bitten or killed. Let's go. Naruto said before taking off with the others close behind him. By now the soldiers were in a far better position as the last of the mob that had attacked them was killed and they had begun killing anything in front of the checkpoint that presented itself. Zombies dropped around them as extra shots loudly smashed into the cars nearby. Unfortunately Miku was a bit too high off the ground and a shot ricocheted off of one of the vehicles and clipped her leg, causing her to stumble and fall. The zombies that they had all been running past turned toward the easy prey and began to close in, causing her to scream in terror before Takashi shoved the nearest zombie out of the way. It stumbled back before being killed by the guards that had turned more attention to the area they were all in. Just as Takashi helped Miku up though, another zombie managed to snatch a hold of Takashi's shirt and both fell to the ground grappling with one another. The infected snapped its teeth mere inches from Takashi's neck as he struggled to hold it at bay. The shoe planted squarely into the side of the monster's head saved him. Naruto rushed past Takashi to finish his kill as the boy clambered to his feet once more. While the blonde smashed in the zombie's head, both locked eyes for just a moment and nodded in respect. The crack of a rifle ruined the moment as Takashi screamed and collapsed with blood spraying from his thigh. Fuck. Naruto shouted as he grabbed onto the other boy and dragged him toward the stairs where the others waited. Miku and Kota practically dove down them as Naruto approached. More bullets tore into the concrete around them, peppering both boys with stinging debris. Despite that, they pushed on, ignoring the pain as best as they could. Takashi struggled back to his feet, stumbling and dragging his injured leg as he heavily leaned on Naruto for support. It felt like it took them forever to get to the stairway, but in truth mere seconds passed by. When they did make it to the rest of the group though, they lost their balance almost immediately upon trying to navigate the incline. Naruto managed to find himself under the other boy as they tumbled down the hard concrete steps to the feet of their group. Pain blossomed across the blonde's body with each impact and he let out a painful wheeze as they came to a stop. Takashi was practically yanked up off of him by the others as they tried to do something about the wounded leg. Shizuka had started on Miku's injury, but seeing Takashi's she moved over to help him immediately, while Sakura took over for her on the much less threatening problem. Siko gave Naruto a hand up as the others hovered around the two injured members of the group. He gave the girl a nod for the help and pushed the ache in his back down out of his mind. They needed to move and they needed to do it quickly. Do what you can to make sure Takashi and Miku can safely move. We only have a few moments before someone either tries to pop us or more of the zombies come for us. He commanded. Takashi is shot. Ray all but shouted at him. And still breathing. I want to keep it that way so we need to get him and the rest of us out of here as soon as possible. Naruto barked back. Miku should be fine, it was just a graze, it's gonna suck walking on it though. Sakura said before give a sympathetic look to her female classmate. As long as I'm not bleeding. Thanks. The girl said quietly as she eyed Takashi worriedly. Naruto nodded at that and turned his attention to Takashi as well. The boy had saved Miku's life and was definitely pulling his own weight so far. He might not be Naruto's favorite person, but really he had no issues with the boy either. Nothing major anyway. How bad is it? Naruto asked Shizuka as she worked. The God Ray began only for Takashi to grab her hand and cause her to become quiet. Shizuka sighed. I don't really have things to stitch up a bullet hole. It went through the fleshiest bit however and went out the other side. The best I can do is tie a tourniquet for now. Naruto nodded before moving past the others as she went to work doing just that. He stared down the darkening paths they would have to take and blew out an agitated sigh. Looking around he saw an abandoned homeless camp beneath a bridge as well as piles of nearby garbage that had been simply left to rot. Seeing some of the items left there he felt an idea from and waved Koda over to give him a hand. The male shift stretcher couldn't have been comfortable for Takashi, but it was better than him trying to walk at the moment. Naruto and Koda hefted the thing between the two of them at the center of the group with Shizuka beside them keeping an eye on Takashi's leg. Miku was moving pretty well despite her injury, but she was still having to lean on an annoyed Saya for support. The girl didn't open her mouth to complain though. At least not anymore after both Naruto and Siko had practically scolded her like angry parents. Despite the injuries their group had suffered at the checkpoint they were in pretty good shape. They had already raided a hardware shop that was down the road from where Shizuka was guiding them to her friend's home. Naruto had wanted to raid a convenience store or some other shop as well, but honestly he didn't like their chances at the moment. They had been lucky that no one seemed interested in rolling through a hardware shop for supplies at the moment. Sakura, Ray, and Shizuka all had several bags of snacks and drinks from now broken vending machines. They had also all upgraded their weapons to the best of their ability. More nails for Koda's little makeshift rifle were easy to stock up on. He also carried a pair of heavy wrenches through loops on a backpack filled to the brim with nails and compressed air canisters. Naruto himself had snagged a demolition tool. Normally meant to tear apart walls for some renovations, it worked almost as well on a body as it did on drywall and other materials. It was also pretty sturdy and surprisingly lightweight with a side shaped like a hammer, one like pry bar, and another like pickaxe. Hell, half the crew had one of them on their person now, even if they also spotted sections of hefty pipe or even a crudely sharpened hoe in Ray's case. It's just up there around the corner. Shizuka called out to Siko who had taken the point position since Naruto was helping to carry the stretcher. How can you even tell with how dark it is? Miku asked with a small wince as she stepped forward with her bad leg. The girl had a point though. Most of the streetlights were either destroyed or simply non-functioning. Most of the houses still had some light coming from them, but with curtains drawn, it really just cast eerie ambient light in rare slivers along their path. I know the way by heart. Shizuka simply replied before she turned her attention back to Takashi's leg. While the rest of the group had gone through the hardware store for things to use, Shizuka had gone to work on Takashi's leg. Thankfully the store had power and was well lit near the register. She'd not only managed to properly bandage the wound, she'd done what she could to close it up as well. That was the main reason Takashi remained on the stretcher. They were worried having him move too much would just undo all the work that Shizuka had done to set things right. Everyone stop. Siko said before they rounded the corner. What is it? Naruto asked. The problem. The girl said simply as he set Takashi down gently and joined her. He nearly cursed but kept silent as he stared at the problem that was one name for the obstacle in their way. At least it's well lit. Naruto commented. Dark. Siko said in reply as they both stared at the huge pile of burning corpses in the center of the street. Could be a good thing. Naruto tried to remain a bit hopeful. No. It's not. She simply pointed at a pair of men in firefighter outfits dragging a gagged man from a house to the street. The firefighters wore a full suit, complete with gas mask and air tank on their back. Another 3 firefighters stood in the street. Dressed the same way, however, 2 of them had an additional tank on their back, painted in bright yellow and rigged up to some sort of homemade flamethrower. The third had a pistol. The group spoke to another, and the man screamed through his gag, but Naruto was too far away to be able to tell what was being said. A moment later he figured he got the gist of it when the apparent leader lifted his gun and fired a single shot through the gagged man's forehead. The 2 holding the corpse simply hefted up and swung it onto the pile of burning bodies with ease. Shit. Naruto fucked back around the corner, pulling Seiko against him as he did. The 2 stayed still for a moment, leaning tightly against the wall before Seiko moved off of him and asked Shizuka to point their objective out. The nurse was smart enough not to lean fully into the street but pointed out one of the larger houses. Right across from the psychotic fireman. Of course. Naruto growled out in annoyance. Why wouldn't there be crazy people murdering folks and setting them on fire in his way? He'd already dealt with zombies, asshole teachers on power trips, and soldiers shooting at him. Chapter 5. The Human Element. Initially, Naruto had hoped the firemen in the street would leave now that they had executed the man and placed him on the burning pile of corpses. Instead, they swept up to the next residence and attempted to open the gate separating the home from the street. When it wouldn't open, they drew out a pair of tools normally used for rescue operations by the fire department to break the lock and force the gate off of its track and out of the way. He could hear the screams of the family inside as the men moved toward the front door. Fuck. Fucking what now? Naruto snarled under his breath as he weakly slapped his hand against the concrete wall concealing him from the firefighters. Maybe we can just wait for them to leave. Miku asked. We can't just sit out here. We're asking for them to find us or to run into more zombies. Seiko replied. What if we slip past them while they are raiding one of the houses? Saya chimed in. They are going door to door clearing the neighborhood out. The other neighbors are just waiting their turns and hoping something stops them first. Naruto muttered. Cowards. Ray bit out as she peeked around the corner. The screaming and sounds of fighting in the house nearby had stopped. A young woman, maybe a year or 2 older than Naruto, came running out the front door holding a bloody wound on her chest. One of the firemen charged out of the house behind her and leveled the homemade flamethrower. Naruto grimaced at the horrific sight while most of the group yanked away from the edge of the wall and whimpered at the murder. We don't stand a chance against those things or the one with a pistol in a straight-up fight. We need to lure them into a trap. Naruto said as he turned away from the now silent woman as she burned. He scanned the street and multiple buildings trying to find his best advantage. Wait, what? You can't seriously think that the best thing to do is to try and fight them? They have guns and fucking flamethrowers. Saya snapped with her voice gradually rising in volume until Sakura tightly wrapped a hand over her mouth. If you get much louder we won't be fighting anything at all. Sakura growled. Naruto narrowed his eyes before turning to make sure that the men hadn't heard anything. Thankfully it seemed that the thick coverings and helmets the men had were a bit too thick and affected their hearing a bit. They just continued to drag the bodies of a family of 5 out to their pyre, using their tools to prod and drag the girl that they had torched onto the pile. They can't hear much over their gear and the sound of the equipment they are using. Those flamethrowers are whistling pretty loudly. They are saving bullets for those who aren't infected yet. Seiko remarked as she noticed they used a hammer to kill one of the zombies before pitching it onto the fire. Some sick sense of mercy, I'm sure. Naruto added in. They watched as the group methodically moved to the next residence. It took them a bit longer to break down the gate and force their way in, and whoever lived inside seemed intent to put up some kind of fight. The man with the pistol aimed to shoot whoever was behind the door but pulled his army back and waved the 2 others forward. Using axes they began tearing apart the doorway and only when it was ripped fully open did they begin pressing forward. They never even planned to use the flamethrower. Naruto mumbled. Not on the house. Seiko agreed. They are going out of their way to try and keep the buildings livable. They don't want to risk hitting each other with a gun either. I have an idea. Naruto said before motioning the group to get ready. He took a second to prepare himself before filling them in on the full situation and the only real resolution he could see to it. The house that you can get us into has guns, right, Shizuka? Naruto asked. A lot actually. The nurse said as she nodded. Then we need that to turn the tables on these assholes. Naruto said as he glanced around the corner again as he heard the pistol fire in the house currently being raided. Great, how do we get into the house without them seeing us? That bonfire is right in front of it and those guys are between us and the fire. Ray pointed out. I have a plan, alright. This sucks but it's the best path forward as far as I can tell. Seiko and I will go and get into the house that they will be hitting next. These tools we got from the hardware store should let me break in. Then we will lure those guys in to buy the rest of you a chance to get across the road and get your hands on some firepower," Naruto explained. "No." Sakura sharply interrupted. "What? That is just asking for those guys to kill you. How do we even know that we can get to the guns in the house? Don't most people keep that sort of thing in a safe or something?" Sakura argued. "Well, we can't circle around, those guys are going to definitely catch us then, and we can't go back down the hill, there are more zombies down there and it's too dark to fight them, not to mention some of the group is injured," Siko pointed out. Sakura chewed on her lip, then stepped up beside Naruto. "Then Siko should lead the group to the house and I will come with you," Sakura argued. "I think," Naruto began. "I'm not negotiating," Sakura said sternly. "You are being ridiculous," Naruto snapped, but his girlfriend said nothing and continued to glare. "Fuck it, fine, whatever. Siko, Shizuka, and Koda will all head into the house to get guns, then come save our asses," Naruto explained. The group was quiet. The plan was risky and most of them felt like it might be best to try their luck against the horde at the base of the hill. Unfortunately they were all tired. Some of them were hurt. There also were simply too many zombies back the way that they came. "We'll come as soon as we can," Siko reassured him. "Okay, the rest of you stay here, if it all goes to shit you can try your luck whichever way you want. Hopefully we can handle them and we can all get into the house after this is over," Naruto said before snagging Sakura's wrist with his hand and pulling her along after him. The firemen had moved on to the next house, just beside the one Naruto had decided would be his ambush. They only had a moment after they went in for Sakura and him to break through the gate of the next house and set up. That was if everything worked out perfectly too. Things looked up as they made it to the outer gate of the property and found that it was unlocked. Unfortunately, as they made it to the door, the good news ended there. It seemed that the house next door didn't have any survivors or anything to interest the men breaking in. Just as Naruto and Sakura slipped into the house, the firemen were making their way down to the street and coming up toward the gate. "I don't know why you were so insistent on coming with me," Naruto bit out. "Because if we need to we can just slip out the back here and meet up with your family in the city. Some of the others are hurt and they will slow us down and make perfect meals for the zombies," Sakura whispered back darkly. Naruto groaned faintly. "We need those guns, Sakura, and there is safety in numbers. I wanted you with the others because I know you wouldn't leave me hanging out to dry if my life was on the line. Some of the others I am not quite so sure about. Not yet anyway," Naruto replied before putting a finger to his lips to keep Sakura from responding. Heavy footsteps thumped just outside the front door and Naruto practically held his breath as he pulled Sakura deeper into the house. "Hide in this closet. Wait till I jump the guy with the pistol, then use that tool to get whichever one I can't reach," Naruto ordered while pushing her into a small closet filled with soft blankets. Sakura wanted to argue. She hated this entire plan. Not to mention she wanted to dump the others and stick with just her and Naruto in the first place. It seemed like a safer bet than bogging themselves down with injured and hopeless others. Not that they were all hopeless, but she wasn't all that fond of having Siko and Shizuka with them for other reasons. Even if she could acknowledge that having a nurse or someone more than ready and willing to kill was helpful. Erizet pushed her thoughts aside as she watched through the tiny crack in the closet door for her chance to jump in and help. Naruto had tucked himself into a dark corner near the door of the room, but not till after unscrewing the light bulb and grabbing it in his free hand. "Another empty one." One of the men called out loudly to his comrades as he walked past the room. "Maybe, maybe not. Check everywhere. If we really want to set up a safe zone we need to clear out all of the liabilities around here," the apparent leader replied. Liabilities. That was all they saw their fellow survivors as. It had been a couple days and already there were people this accepting of murder. Any worry she might have had about feeling bad for killing these men was gone. The only worry that remained was if she and Naruto would succeed. Maybe she should have gone for the guns like he told her initially. Too late now. The door swung open and one of the men stepped in, a fire axe at the ready. He flicked the switch on the wall and cursed when it didn't turn the light on before stepping a bit further into the room and toward her hiding spot. Despite herself, the approach of the large man with an axe caused her to hold her breath. She trembled slightly in a mix of anticipation and terror. The second man stepped in carrying a steel bar that looked like a mix of a crowbar and a hammer. That was when Naruto moved. Just as the first reached out with one hand to open the closet and Sakura tensed her entire body, ready to fight for her life, Naruto leapt from his dark corner and kicked the second man into the bed. His knee caught the edge and he tumbled over it and fell awkwardly face first on the other side. He dropped his weapon as he fell and wound up in a tangle of limbs while screaming profanity at the top of his lungs. The first man turned in surprise at the sudden change, but was too slow to react as Naruto shoved his weapon from the hardware store up into the gas mask. It smashed the man's nose and lifted the mask up off his face, sending both it and his fire helmet tumbling to the floor. Then the blonde brought the light bulb down into his victim's face, right into his eyes. The glass shattered, and the man screamed in rage and pain as Naruto dragged the broken remains of the bulb across his face, blinding him. Sakura watched as the third man stepped into the room and leveled his pistol squarely at Naruto's back. She didn't hesitate and slammed open the closet door and swung her weapon at the man's arm. It wasn't fast enough and he twisted away back into the hallway. Before she could try and pursue, she was knocked into the wall as the man fighting with Naruto had shoved him back. In spite of his facial wounds, the killer was still larger and stronger than Naruto was and had a protective suit of thick material. Suddenly the bedroom felt incredibly crowded and both Sakura and Naruto were pressed against the wall as the false fireman began raining blows with his fists wildly. But the man pressed right up against them. Naruto and Sakura didn't have the room to properly swing their tools and so dropped them in favor of using their hands. Naruto managed to grab a hold of the wrists of their attacker while Sakura began planting her own fists into the man's face and chest. As they did this though, the second and third man recovered. There was no clear line for the pistol to hit Naruto and Sakura on the other side of the injured fireman, but the second man reclaimed his weapon and clambered over the bed to try and save his partner. He brought the hammer side down on Naruto's arm. Luckily overswinging and missing with the head of the hammer. The bar that it was attached to still made contact and Naruto cried out in pain and released his grip on the first man. "Get out of the goddamn way, I'll just shoot the bastards." The leader barked and both men moved to put distance between themselves and the teens. Sakura realized at the moment they were out of the way she and Naruto were as good as dead. She grabbed a hold of the bloodied man and held on for dear life as tears built in her eyes. They hadn't come. Siko and the others had left them for dead. She wanted to scream, she was screaming. Then the crack of gunfire filled her ears and she screamed some more expecting to die. Instead the man with the pistol twisted down the hallway. Another pair of loud cracks and blood blossomed across his chest and he fell backward and slid down the wall, leaving streaks of red in his wake. "What the fuck?" one of the remaining firemen said, but Naruto didn't pause like everyone else. He turned and grabbed hold of the uninjured fireman's head and drove a thumb into one of his eyes, tearing it out and forcing him off and away from him. He snatched Sakura's wrist and dragged her out of the tangle of bodies and into the hallway, before stumbling to grab the pistol on the floor and turning back to face the two wounded firemen. "Wait, please." One of them began to beg, but Naruto didn't wait any longer than that and fired the gun. He regretted it a moment later as one of the bullets passed through one's neck and into the valve for the fuel strapped onto his back. Sakura felt him tackle her down the hallway and a swell of heat as the room was suddenly engulfed in flames. Then hands, those of Kota and Siko, practically dragged them out of the house and back towards safety. It took a bit, but soon the whole group was reunited inside of Shizuka's friend's house. Altogether they were in increasingly rough shape from their last few ordeals. 4 of them now sported injuries of varying degrees. Takashi remained the worse off with a literal gunshot wound and he wasn't able to walk by himself or even very far when he had help. Miku had a graze from a bullet but was otherwise okay, though it still caused her some pain. Sakura had joined her with relatively superficial injuries. Bruising to the face and a busted lip and bloodied nose were the worst of her wounds. Naruto however hadn't come away from the fight with the fireman unscathed in the slightest. Well, it wasn't broken, his arm was swollen and pretty badly bruised from the hammer one of the men had tried to use on him. The hand on that same arm was torn up badly from breaking a light bulb into one of the men's eyes. Like Sakura, he sported bruises on his face from the punches thrown toward the end, but his worst wounds had to be the burns across his arm and shoulder from shielding Sakura when the flamethrower had exploded. Needless to say, he was in a bit of agony as Shizuka worried over his form. Naruto did his best to ignore the pain as the nurse applied the salve to the blistered and red skin on his arm. Thankfully the worst of his injuries were some mild second-degree burns. It put him in a far better spot than Takashi currently was. It was more manageable with a busty nurse practically on top of him as she worked. Her breasts squished up against his chest, bouncing and jiggling with every movement she made. Sakura wasn't pleased, but she didn't have much space to complain about since the nurse had nearly smothered her a second ago with her tits while giving the girl a hug. It's what she got for volunteering to help care for the wounded. "I think that will do for now. We'll change bandages in the morning and see how things are looking," Shizuka said as she sat up straight, removing the wonderful weight of her chest from its place on his belly. "Yeah. Thanks," Naruto muttered while staring at the scant couple of inches of fabric that was keeping her chest from simply spilling out of her tattered blouse. "You got pretty roughed up in there. Good thing Kota and I came when we did," Siko said as she leaned down beside Naruto to practically purr into his ear. The boy turned to face her, catching the glint in her ear as she looked over his form. He'd removed his shirt so it didn't get in the way, and Siko as well as a couple of the other girls had made it clear that they appreciated what they saw. Sakura on the other hand had been fuming ever since. Well, I trust you to come rescue me if I need it. Naruto chuckled, enjoying the slightly flirty nature of the girl. My own damsel in distress, fun. Siko laughed before standing up as Sakura loomed nearby with a scowl clear on her face. We should get cleaned up. What do you think, Sakura? Siko asked as she turned toward her classmate. Sakura fought back a glare at the other girl but let loose a sigh. She did want to clean up. Not only did she feel filthy, there was a mix of her own blood and that of zombies and murderous firemen splattered on her. Before she could actually reply though, Shizuka grabbed both her and Siko by the wrist and started leading them toward the other girls and the bathroom beyond them at the end of the hall. There was a little half-hearted arguing, but Shizuka practically herded the girls into the bathroom together and closed the door up behind them. Naruto and his fellow men stared after them as the sounds in the bathroom immediately seemed to change to the shuffling of the women undressing, followed by giggling and the running of water. Pretty sure we are supposed to peek. Koda offered. I would take that rifle and beat you with it even if you saved my ass earlier. Naruto said with a raised eyebrow. Koda chuckled awkwardly. Everyone kind of knew his reputation of being open with the women he went after, but that didn't mean he was fair when it came to the other way around. He took anyone so much as looking at Sakura that way a bit too personally. Just a joke. Right. Takashi offered to keep the peace. He grimaced a bit as he adjusted how he was sitting. Yeah, just a joke. Anyway, let's do a rundown of all that we have here. I dunno who Miss Shizuka's friend is but they have got some serious money and some serious firepower. Pretty sure having this in your house is prison time. Koda explained as he turned to where he, Shizuka and Siko had laid out the weapons after breaking into the lockers to get some firepower. Yeah, she has to have some connections to even get this sort of thing into the country. My parents and their employees have some of this kind of thing, but this is a lot nicer than what they would give the majority of their guys. It's all imported. Naruto commented. You know your guns pretty well. Koda asked in mild surprise. I have a feeling you kind of know them better than me. I've shot a few and been taught how to handle them though. Naruto replied. I kind of get where you learned, Takashi said as he looked at Naruto, but he turned to look at Koda with some interest. You, I gotta say, kinda surprised. My parents go overseas a lot and during the summer I go with them or get shipped off with some family or something. I've even gotten to go through a firearms course held by ex-special forces from the United States. Koda said. Naruto let out a low whistle at that and laughed. I think I'll let you have first pick of the guns then Koda, what suits you best? Naruto offered motioning toward the weapons. Koda turned back toward the guns and thought for a second before scratching at his chin. Each of them is great, good for different things. The Ithaca M37 has a comp M2 sight on it, just like you could get in Call of Duty or something. That's pretty handy. The Springfield rifle is really nice with a bayonet attachment, a foregrip, a red dot sight, and even a flashlight. Koda said before turning to the next weapon. Figured you would be drawn more to the Arkansas over everything else. Naruto pointed out. That thing is awesome. A scope, a bipod. It's probably my favorite. Shouldn't discount the pistol and shotgun though. That Remington 870 has all the bells and whistles that the police would slap on it. Attack light embedded in the slide of the gun and shell holder to make it faster to reload. Koda explained. And last but not least a Tech 9 pistol. Semi-auto, in this case. Naruto explained. You familiar with that one? Takashi asked with a chuckle. In a way. It's pretty popular with some of the guys that work for my family. Not exactly the most popular or easiest to get a hold of, but well a 9mm with a 32-round magazine is nice to have. Who even needs to reload with that many rounds at a time? Naruto said as he prodded the pistol with a grin. Koda squealed like a girl meeting her celebrity crush as he looked at the guns. Oh, I just can't decide. You go first, it will narrow it down for me. Beside you are our leader. Naruto was a bit surprised by that, but shrugged. He ignored the look that Takashi shot him after Koda said that though. It didn't really matter if any of the others had some concerns about his leadership at this point. He had the backing of the majority of the group and the natural leaders among them. Besides, with Takashi's injury, as cruel as it was to say, he needed Naruto and the others way more than they needed him. Well, I guess if you are going to put me on the spot, I gotta go with the Springfield. It's an M1A, and with that bayonet included, I can get my hands dirty close up or at range without worrying too much about getting bitten. Not to mention it can pack plenty of a punch for what we need. Naruto explained as he picked up the rifle and began loading a magazine. Good pick. That was the one I was using when we came to give you guys a hand, but honestly I have gotta go with the 870. Koda said with a grin. I practiced with it more than any others when shooting in America. From where Takashi was sitting he hefted the M37 and swung it around taking aim at Koda and Naruto through the sight. Naruto pushed the barrel up above his head with a bit of panic before calming back down, while Koda yelped. Don't point that at anything you don't plan on killing. Naruto scolded before letting the gun go. Kakashi chuckled a bit awkwardly before nodding. Sorry, it's unloaded though. Just try to make it a habit to not point it at people unless you plan on pulling the trigger. Naruto replied stiffly before standing up and stretching. It made his shoulder and arm twitch in mild pain, but Shizuka was seriously talented. Way more than a school nurse had any reason to be. Maybe she was just working on the start of her career. She was relatively young, not quite 10 years older than Naruto himself was. Man, I kinda wanna ask how Miss Shizuka knows whoever owns all these guns. I mean, you would never expect her to have that kind of friend you know. Kota said. I was just thinking the same thing. It's weird but I can't say I don't appreciate the luck we have right now. Naruto replied as he turned to look at the bathroom door once again, as a squeal followed by some giggling could be heard once again. The kinda wanted to peek too, but really he had bigger things on his mind at the moment. Bullets smacked into the concrete barriers as defenders at Yozo Towers took cover from the pair of shooters down the street. A utility truck, armored up with steel bars and plates, slowly crawled down the road while peppering the defenses with fire. Unfortunately for the men inside, they hadn't prepared quite enough to make a move on Minato and Kushina's group. A louder blast of fire sounded from one of the balconies further up the building, and a high-velocity round cracked through the makeshift armor and into the engine of the truck. 2 more shots followed soon after before the truck sputtered and rolled to a stop. Smoke rolled out of the engine along with fluids until a small fire spread out into the leaking fuel and oil. Good hits, target neutralized. Kakashi said to Obito, who remained behind the rifle. Yeah. Don't you think it's weird how quick these guys are getting organized? Obito asked. Like building a fortress in the middle of downtown in like 2 days. Kakashi asked sarcastically. Well, that's different. We had the skeleton of an organization already, and with some help from that nationalist movement, it makes sense we can move fast. These guys aren't like that though. That's the 3rd attempt tonight, and this one was actually kinda threatening. Imagine if we didn't have this baby. Obito said as he patted the anti-material rifle. Human nature maybe. People feel threatened, so they try to organize for protection. Somewhere there is someone with a big mouth stirring up a bunch of scared assholes who want to take advantage of the chaos. Kakashi shrugged. Just that simple, huh? Obito drawled before both stood up and headed back into the room where Minato, Kushina, and Rin all stood. The blonde set the radio on the table at the center of the room and took a seat before nodding to the 2 younger men as they entered. Well done. The teams at the walls are just going to leave the truck until either it runs out of ammo or the guys inside try to make a break for it. When we are sure they are either dead or vulnerable, we will make plans to retrieve the vehicle. Minato said. That armor might come in handy if we cut it off and mount it on some of the lower levels of the buildings. Rin offered. We might need it before long too. Kushina agreed. That was a bitter pill to swallow. It had taken practically no time at all for people to turn on one another in the chaos caused by the sudden outbreak of actual zombies. None of them were really all that surprised by that. After all, they knew that desperate people tended to be dangerous. They had done plenty of work in the past that had put them up against people in at least somewhat similar situations. The worrying issue was how quickly groups were starting to form. Some, like the family here at Yozo Towers, had previously existing organizations to build off of and connections to the right people in the right places to do something productive. Others were naturally prepared for, if not zombies, at least some kind of insanely chaotic event. The last group was the real problem at the moment though. They weren't organized based on a previously existing movement or organization. They didn't have existing plans or methods. They were collections of panicking individuals being thrust into a new world filled with violence. Just like Kakashi had said earlier, some charismatic individual working a group of frightened and armed people into a frenzy was even more dangerous than the likes of the zombies under the right circumstances. We need to prepare some better defenses to handle other people too. I hadn't expected things like armored up vehicles to be used, at least not this early. Minato said. The big gun only has so much ammo, and even then if they really wanted to they could go all out and build up some stuff not even it can punch through. Obito said as he dropped into one of the couches in the room. It's only going to get worse. More people will gather into groups, and when things are bad, Kushina began. Only the worst or the best rise to the top. Minato finished for her as he looked out into the city through the window. Distant fights between the military and the zombies could be seen near the river. Further inland, some fires had begun and spread, lighting areas of the city in eerie orange light. Gunfire could be heard echoing down the streets, both from the men still holed up in the disabled truck and further away, out of sight. Somewhere out there other survivors were making the choice between their life and their previously held morality. Almost all of them made the same decision. You are truly all so brave and so strong to have made it this far. I am so proud of you all. Shido said to those gathered before him. His little group had grown. They'd added a couple of young men and women who had been fleeing the gunfire near the bridges, and now Shido had nearly 20 people following him. Currently they had commandeered a small little shop on a street corner. It hadn't been long after that Namika's brat had led some of the others on the bus off into the city that they had run out of fuel and just been stuck. Shido had kept control of the teens that remained with him and set out into the throng of people. It hadn't taken him all that long to realize that he was essentially walking along a human buffet and so had given a little rousing speech about striking out on their own and relying on one another for their safety. It was as if fate was rewarding him for that little display when they heard the chaos break out among the crowds back near the highway. Screams and gunfire and plenty of people suddenly spilling up the same roads that he and his little disciples had made their way along only a few moments earlier. Yamada, one of the boys that had followed him so far, had opened the doors for their little hideaway to let in other survivors. It was almost enough for Shido to have him thrown out with the wretches running for their lives outside. Instead he saw an opportunity at the last moment. Among those running had been a few other younger people. One or two teenagers like his students, but a handful of young adults just recently graduated from secondary school. All it had taken from Shido was a suggestion that no one who was too old be let in. The teens were too ready to agree that the older people might slow them down. Especially after he had talked about how healthy and strong they all were at the prime of their lives. They'd been the ones to make the excuses for his own age being a man in his early 30s. He was healthy and thin, so he could survive. That was what Kawamoto had said as she defended him from his own words. They'd separated a younger girl from her older mother. A teenager like the others, the girl was maybe a year younger than his own students had been at most. Either way, the woman had been ready to part with the girl when she found that they weren't letting anyone older than 19 into the store. That had been just as the sun was setting. He had little doubt that the woman was dead now, somewhere out there. Her daughter fit in well enough now though. Tsunoda seemed almost protective of her, which was all well and good. For whatever reason the boy was his most ardent follower among the group and somewhat capable of stirring some of the others up to follow him when needed. Mr. Shido, there's someone outside again. A girl with a little kid. She's begging to be let in. Kurakami said as he approached. Another survivor. With a child too. Sadly, the prospect of a child is much like that for older individuals. Actually it's worse, with elders they can draw on experience at the least. Children can't handle such situations as this one at all. Shido said loud enough for others to be heard. What? Yamada began to speak before he was kicked harshly in the leg by Tsunoda and told to shut up. Actually throughout history it has been a recurring choice people have been forced to make. Let's talk to our young mother. Shido said with the others following closely as he made for the blockaded doors. Tsunoda and the other boys quickly cleared the blockage and the young woman stepped forward. She really was young, a teen mother no doubt and not well off financially judging from her clothing. Normally he would have considered such a person as a leech on society, but at the moment the question would be what society was she possibly leeching off of. Please, my son and I. We managed to hide when all the shooting and infected went crazy at the bridge, but we have nowhere to go. She said weakly. Shido didn't respond, instead he turned his head to look at Tsunoda who crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes at the girl. How old are you? He growled at her. 19. The girl replied before seeming to realize that everyone except for Shido himself was all her age or younger. Mostly younger. What about the baby? Taneuchi, one of the girls asked. He's only 2. He'll be 3 in a month though. She said, seeming to realize that age was important to Shido and his group. The teacher swept forward to stand beside her. He's sleeping through all of this? That's quite impressive. He said as he looked down at the boy. He only fell asleep a little while ago. He's been crying and screaming all day, but he's exhausted now. She replied. So are you. It must have been terrible for you to have to care for and protect him. What about your family? Shido asked. The girl hesitated before she looked at the ground. I haven't spoken with my parents since I was pregnant with Renzo. Ah, that is terrible. Though not surprising. You see, children are burdens as much as they are important parts of our species. There has been many times in history that when the decision was to be made between a mother surviving and her child, she was forced to decide. Shido said calmly while placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Any mother would choose their child. She bit out harshly. Of course they would. If the choice was that simple. Unfortunately it never is. If the choice is between you surviving and your child surviving, you would always pick your child. You are a good mother after all. No matter what anyone says. Shido said loudly. The baby stirred in her arms but remained asleep. The girl relaxed at that. However, the choice is not that simple. It isn't between your life and your baby's life. Without you, your child will surely die, so really the choice is, will you both die or will your child die? Shido explained, causing her to turn and face him. What? The world is a terribly cruel place. It must have been incredibly hard for you to raise your child all alone. I mean without your own parents to support you, you must have struggled even before the outbreak of this chaos. Yeah, I can't imagine raising a baby, and I'm the same age you would have had him. Kawamoto chimed in. I managed. But you did, what's your name? Shido asked while gently rubbing at her shoulder gently. As clearly uncomfortable as he made her, the girl felt safer here than she had since all of this mess had begun, maybe even a little before. After all, while she might have managed, he wasn't wrong that it had been a struggle. An immense one. My name's Rumiko Amata. She muttered quietly. Rumiko? You have proven how strong you are. A real survivor just like everyone here. The kind of person who makes rebuilding after all this chaos a possibility. Shido said before his eyes flicked to the child in her arms. Mr. Shido, didn't you say that we only want to let in people who are survivors? The ones like us, but that little kid Miura commented. Rumiko pulled her son a bit closer to her chest. Yes, I did. Things are too dangerous for anyone but the select few real survivors like you all to make it through this. Those who are too old or too young or weak simply are a burden that will drag a strong person down, at least until things get better. Shido said quietly. He stepped away from Rumiko before sighing sadly and dramatically and leaning against the cashier's counter of the shop. You know, there is a famous story from Europe. About a noble lady. Katerina Sforza. A real survivor from the Middle Ages. Harsh times in Europe, just like these times are for us. Katerina was a loving wife and mother, but her family was besieged by invaders who had managed to kill her husband and capture all of her children. Faced with the choice of surrendering her fortress and herself and being executed alongside her children, or leaving them to die and continue the fight, Katerina made a famous statement as she climbed to the walls and shouted down to those below her. Shido said. He slowly turned around and looked into Rumiko's eyes. She shouted down to them, do it if you want to. Hang them in front of me. I have the means to make more. That's terrible. Rumiko said with a shudder. That's reality. That's survival. That's what kind of resolve it takes to save humanity and bring it into a new age. Shido nearly whispered as he stepped up beside her once again. You can't expect me to kill my baby. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. That's too far and the situation doesn't call for it at all. Instead, I have something that is far more merciful and has been done many times in the past. In fact, consider it a final gift for both you and your son. Shido said as he drew near and slid his arms into Rumiko's. The woman resisted, but only briefly. Slowly he lifted the child up out of her arms, careful not to disturb it. Kurakami, Taneuchi, would you both come here please? Shido asked. The boy and girl glanced at one another before slowly stepping forward up to him anxiously. There's no need to be afraid. We are not going to harm little Renzo, was it? Shido asked as he glanced over toward the shaking Rumiko. Yes, his name is Renzo. Take little Renzo and wait for me by the back door. We are not animals. We won't hurt an innocent little child like this. Shido said, calming the mounting tension in the group and the young mother. He turned back to Rumiko and drew her in for a hug. She stiffened briefly before breaking down in his arms as the pressure of everything collapsed onto her. SHH, there, Rumiko. Everything is okay. I know it's hard, but you are a great mother and one day you will look at this as the opportunity to step forward and make a better life for yourself and your future children. Remember Renzo, and remember that you did everything you could for him and more, but when you had to you made the hardest decision a human can make. And you survived. Shido comforted her. A few minutes later, as the group consoled the mother, Shido led Taneuchi and Kurakami out the back door and down an alley some ways. That dumpster down there. Place him inside and close the door. He said bluntly. What? Taneuchi asked as she pulled the baby closer to her in shock. Don't mistake it as being cruel. The dumpster is big and heavy, and with the lid closed, he will have a better chance of surviving. It's only right to give him a chance. After all, there have been times that children abandoned in the wild have done amazing things after surviving the ordeal. Once you come back, I will tell the two of you about Romulus and Remus. It might give you some hope in these dark days. Shido said. The teens slowly did as they were told and both happily took the feeling of his arms over their shoulders as they stepped back into the shop. What if Naruto X High School of the Dead Harem end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.